A white car pulls up and parks right in front of a large, luxurious mansion. A dummy-caked woman steps out of the vehicle, struggling and panting slightly as she carries something that feels incredibly heavy to her. She cannot help but notice how brutally hot it is outside, making her feel completely sticky and desperate for a shower. Meanwhile, inside the house, a filthy young man is secretly using the bathroom, fully convinced that it will be quite a while before she returns home. This absolute monkey notices a bottle of shampoo and realizes it is the incredibly expensive brand he has only ever heard rumors about. As he washes his hair, he thinks about how amazing the shampoo smells, though he also grumbles to himself about how the family always keeps the best luxury items entirely to themselves. At that moment, the woman walks through the front door, sighing heavily about the intense heat and lamenting how unfortunate it was to be stuck outdoors in such weather. She complains to herself about having to play golf on such a miserable day, prompting her to immediately wear a dress so she can wash off all the sweat. However, as she enters the bathroom, both of them are caught completely off guard by the unexpected encounter. The woman is entirely shocked and immediately covers her mouth, while the dumb kid stands there frozen with soap suds on his head, awkwardly uttering her title. She glares at him and strictly calls out his name, Damon, demandingly pointing out that she had explicitly told him never to use this specific bathroom. Damon quickly apologizes and explains that the shower up on the second floor is currently broken, leaving him with no other option. Rather than showing sympathy, she sharply orders him to either fix the broken shower himself or report it to Mr. Cho, stating that he ought to be capable of handling such basic household tasks on his own, which he timidly accepts. After he turns away, the woman wraps herself up and anxiously wonders what she should do next, realizing that he likely saw her gym physique. She tries to reassure herself that it is probably fine since he is just a naive kid, but then she suddenly starts reflecting on how much he has grown and notices that he has gotten quite a big boy. She even catches herself thinking about how surprisingly manly he looked down there, which makes her instantly slap her own face in embarrassment. She scolds herself for having such sussy thoughts about someone who is essentially like a son to her, concluding that she must be losing her mind. A moment later, she snaps back to reality and yells through the door that he is taking far too long in the shower and needs to conserve the household water. The submissive kid apologizes once again, but she isn't done ordering him around and tells him that he needs to finish the laundry before he even thinks about washing the dishes. Damon complies with her demands, reflecting bitterly on the sad reality that while he is technically considered a son in this household by name, he is unofficially treated as nothing more than a common servant. Following her strict orders, he heads upstairs to retrieve the dirty laundry from his sister's rooms. He approaches the first door and quietly calls out to see if Gajeong Nuna is currently inside. This clueless boy decides it is best to just quickly grab her clothes and escape the room before anyone notices him. But just as he steps inside, he panics upon realizing that she is actually right there in the room, leaving him completely horrified with the sudden realization that he is totally screwed. As Damon walks into the room, Gajeong immediately snaps at him, demanding to know what he is doing and pointing out that he did not even bother to knock. The dumb kid nervously stammers that he did indeed knock, explaining that Ajuma explicitly ordered him to gather up all the laundry. He looks around awkwardly, realizing that he just needs to take whatever clothing is laid out right in front of him. Before he can escape, this demanding sister tells him to wait and tosses another item his way, stating that he needs to take this piece along too. She loudly complains about how brutally warm it is, before strictly instructing him that because the cloth is brand new, he absolutely must wash it by hand. After making sure the clueless boy understands her strict demands, she bluntly orders him to get lost. Moving along to the next room, dumb Damon knocks on the door and politely calls out to announce himself to Gajeong Nuna. She warmly welcomes him inside, asking if he happens to need something from her. The monkey explains that he is merely there to collect her dirty laundry, but she scratches her head and softly reveals that she does not actually have any laundry to give him right now. Instead, she kindly asks if she should help him with his heavy chores. Damon quickly insists that it is perfectly fine, prompting her to gently remind him that if he ever needs assistance with anything at all, he should just let her know. As he walks away, this simple monkey thanks her and cannot help but reflect on just how incredibly sweet and kind Gajeong Nuna always is to him. As night falls over the luxurious mansion, a phone rings out in the quiet evening sky. Damon is busy running around handling his endless list of chores, sighing deeply to himself about how incredibly hectic and busy his daily life has become. He begins to reflect on his bittersweet background, sharing the sad reality that he is actually an orphan with absolutely no memories of his father and only a very faint recollection of his mother. He remembers a painful moment from his childhood in a hospital room, where his fragile mother weakly explained that the CEO had promised to take full care of him after she was gone. She tearfully told little Damon that he must listen to the man, study incredibly hard, and stop worrying about her, as her life slowly slipped away. Outside the operating room at the university hospital, a serious man approached the grieving boy to confirm if he was indeed young Damon. The man later drove him to the massive estate, announcing that this grand place would be his official new home from that moment forward. The dumb boy stood there completely bewildered by the sheer scale of the mansion, but the man reassured him and suggested they head inside to meet his brand new sisters. Unfortunately, their arrival was met with instant hostility as the man's wife furiously yelled at her husband, questioning how he could dare bring a strange child into their home when the boy was clearly not one of his past mistakes or his personal responsibility. The man angrily fired back, asking how she could possibly say something so incredibly heartless. Meanwhile, the poor hungry kid just stood there awkwardly, wishing they could have at least fed him a proper meal before breaking out into a massive family feud. Amidst the intense shouting, one of the older sisters watched silently from a distance while a younger sister approached him. The enthusiastic little girl eagerly asked for his name and warmly invited him to come play with Legos. When he hesitated, she quickly added that they had cool robots to play with too, before tightly grabbing his hand and dragging him away, offering him a comforting glimpse of a close family. Back in the present day, Damon stands out in the hallway, letting out a heavy, anxious breath because he truly does not want to step inside this next particular room. He hesitantly knocks on the door, calling out for Dajong to see if she is currently inside. When he receives no response, this absolute dummy foolishly assumes that she must be away and decides to just walk right inside. To his absolute horror, he opens the door only to find Dajong right in the middle of wearing her jacket, leaving both of them completely frozen and stunned by the sheer embarrassment of the situation. Dajong screams out in pure shock upon seeing her privacy completely compromised. She immediately yells at him, demandingly asking what on earth he is staring at, while calling him a complete. The clueless monkey flushes a bright red color and stammers out a frantic apology for his terrible timing. Dajong cannot help but complain about how incredibly annoying it is that he managed to walk into her room at the exact moment she was wearing her jacket. She demands to know the reason for his uninvited presence, prompting this awkward boy to explain that Ajuma strictly ordered him to gather up all the dirty laundry. Growing even more irritated, she snaps at the stupid kid and aggressively questions whether laundry is really his biggest concern right now, demanding to know if he even bothered to clean her bedroom earlier today. Damon nervously shrinks back, weakly realizing that he did attempt to clean it a while ago. Dajong points directly to a stray strand of hair left resting on the floor, angrily questioning how he could possibly consider this space clean. Terrified of making things worse, the absolute dummy panics and begs for forgiveness, promising that he will clean her entire room the very moment he finishes doing the kitchen dishes. She snaps that he is nothing but a massive nuisance before bluntly ordering him to get lost, sending him scurrying out the door with one final frantic apology. Later that evening, a sleek black car pulls up directly outside the grand mansion. The CEO opens the front door and cheerfully calls out to his children and his wife, loudly announcing his return while immediately looking for Damon. Damon runs over to greet him with immense respect, politely asking the master of the house if his recent business trip was successful. The man confirms that everything went well, immediately checking to see if any chaos occurred during his absence, before inquiring about his wife's whereabouts. Right on cue, the woman comes gliding down the stairs, putting on a remarkably sweet facade, calling him honey and acting completely thrilled that he managed to return a day earlier than originally expected. This massive tonal shift makes Damon feel like a helper dog observing a completely different person. She loudly announces to the entire household that their father has finally returned and dinner is fully prepared, warmly inviting her husband into the dining area. The CEO happily agrees, turning to his tired driver, Mr. Kim, to insist that he grab a hot meal before heading home. Mr. Kim politely declines the kind offer, stating that he will take his leave immediately after he finishes moving all the heavy luggage inside. The wife chimes in with an incredibly sweet voice, suggesting that her husband should let the poor man go home immediately so he can finally get some well-deserved rest, a suggestion the CEO cheerfully accepts. Damon watches this theatrical display in absolute silence, deeply reflecting on how much better life becomes when the master is home, as it forces the wicked woman to become completely gentle. Mr. Kim then calls Damon over to help carry the heavy bags inside the house. The boy happily complies and jumps right in to assist. The driver is deeply impressed by his physical strength, noting that this helpful monkey has clearly gotten much stronger recently. Once everything is entirely moved, Mr. Kim wraps up the task and thanks him for the extra muscle. Damon offers a bright smile, telling him it was no trouble at all, and thanking the driver for his relentless hard work. Mr. Kim lets out a heavy sigh, telling him not to even mention it because he has been driving across cities like Daegu, Busan, and Ulsan for days on end. He then lowers his voice to quietly ask the boy if any hidden drama happened while he was away. Damon quickly downplays the household tension, assuring the driver that every single day has been completely normal and exactly the same as usual. Unconvinced by the answer, Mr. Kim drops his voice even further to clarify that he is specifically asking whether that nasty girl Dajong has been abusing or mistreating him while no one was watching. Damon nervously insists that they simply get along like standard siblings, prompting the wise driver to comment that it would be a massive relief if Daejong actually viewed their relationship that way too. Suddenly, Najeong walks out toward the garage area, noticing that Damon has been hanging out in the workspace this whole time. Damon calls out her name in surprise. She smiles and relays a message from their father, telling him he needs to come inside for dinner as quickly as possible. Najeong politely bids farewell to the driver until next time, and Mr. Kim gives a cool sign as Damon is instructed to head inside. Inside the dining room, the family gathers around a massive feast where the CEO immediately tells his wife that she needs to give Damon a larger portion of meat. She sweetly complies, piling his plate high while telling him to eat a lot, and inquiring about his entrance exam preparation. Damon quietly confirms that his studies are going reasonably well. The CEO then notes that he noticed Damon was in the middle of cleaning up the kitchen dishes earlier, reminding the entire table that a college entrance exam repeater is under the exact same extreme pressure as a high school senior. He points out that even if someone studies like their entire life depends on it, it is still barely enough to succeed, meaning his wife absolutely should not force Damon to handle any household chores. The manipulative woman immediately puts on a deeply wounded, dramatic act, crying out that it makes her incredibly sad to hear him suggest such a thing. She falsely claims that she constantly orders the boy to rest, but he stubbornly insists on helping around the house anyway. To lock in her lie, she turns directly to Damon for confirmation, demanding to know if that is not right, while secretly gripping his leg with an agonizingly tight hold under the table. She loudly boasts to her husband about how she even pays for an amazing test prep center to support him, reminding the boy that he can always ask her for anything because he is strictly considered a son to her. Holding back his immense physical pain, Damon squeaks out a tight thank you to Ajuma. As he forces a fake smile, this poor slave bitterly realizes to himself that if being treated like a son in this household actually means being a glorified, silent slave, then he guesses he truly fits the definition of a son. Najeong kindly offers to help Damon with his English studies. This simple monkey is deeply moved, silently reflecting on how incredibly kind and gentle Najeong Nuna always is, concluding that she is truly the best. He happily accepts her generous offer and thanks her. However, the peaceful moment is immediately ruined when Dajeong scoffs in disgust, demanding to know why they are acting so sweet. She turns her aggressive gaze toward her mother, bluntly telling her to speak correctly and pointing out that Damon is absolutely not her son. Dajeong doubles down on her hostility, telling her mother to stop acting like a total hypocrite. The mother reacts in complete shock, barely able to process being called a hypocrite by her own daughter. Dajeong sneers at her mother's shock, mockingly asking if her words stung or if she said something false. The mother is appalled by the sheer disrespect, wondering how her daughter could ever dare to speak to her in such a shameful manner. Dajeong refuses to back down and exposes the family's fake behavior, stating that her mother is only pretending to be a nice person and acting like they are one big happy family with Damon now that the father is home. The mother sternly warns Dajeong to stop, but the defiant girl casually claims she isn't doing anything wrong. The CEO sighs deeply at the familiar drama, breaking out yet again. Najeong tries to de-escalate the tension by pointing out that Damon can hear everything and pleading with her sister to stop. Dajeong dismisses her completely, wondering what difference it makes if he hears and realizing there is absolutely nothing he can do about it anyway. This mean-spirited girl continues her cruel rant, stating that the clueless boy doesn't even comprehend that he is just a homeless guy leeching off their family. She demands that her mother stop pretending to treat this absolute scum with any kindness, calling the entire display completely disgusting. Her mother completely loses her temper, shouting Dajeong's name and demanding to know if she truly intends to keep speaking to her like that. Before things can get any uglier, the CEO snaps and yells for all of them to stop it immediately. He firmly declares that even though Damon is not related to them by blood, he is absolutely no different from an actual son to him. Looking directly at his wife and Dajeong, he orders them to listen carefully to his words. He delivers a severe ultimatum, stating that if either of them ever utters a malicious comment like that again, he will instantly cut off their allowance and completely strip away all of their financial privileges. Furious at the threat to her money, Dajeong storms away from the table, her heavy footsteps thumping loudly across the floor before she slams her bedroom door shut. Inside her room, she fumes with intense rage, shouting to herself about how incredibly pissed off she is. She rants about the sheer absurdity of calling Damon family when there is absolutely no blood relation linking them together. Finding the situation completely unbelievable, she vows to make him pay, resolving to wait for the perfect opportunity to kick him out of the house for good. She reasons that since the boy only came to live with them because he had absolutely nowhere else to go, he ought to just be grateful for the chance to shrivel up quietly in a corner. It incredibly annoys her that everyone in the house seems to constantly take that beggar's side. Meanwhile, this dumb kid knocks on her door, nervously calling out her name and announcing that he is there to clean her room as promised. Dajong lies on her bed in silence for a brief moment before coldly telling the simple monkey to come right in, maliciously realizing that she now has the perfect chance to treat him exactly like a dog. After finishing up his chores, Damon sighs heavily about how exhausting everything is. This absolute dummy grumbles that his back is completely killing him after all that intense labor. He bitterly notes that Dajong refuses to give him a single moment of peace, treating him exactly like a personal slave. He recalls how she strictly ordered him to make sure there wasn't a single speck of dust left anywhere in her room. The mean-spirited girl had even called him an idiot and told him that if he found his situation so irritating, he should just try getting reborn. Clenching his fist tightly, this stubborn dummy vows to pass his upcoming exam so he can finally get the hell out of that miserable house. He collapses heavily onto his bed to finally get some rest. As he lies there staring blankly at the ceiling, he reflects on the crazy events that occurred earlier in the day. He realizes that it was actually the very first time he had ever seen Ajuma in a sussy way. He begins to think that since Mr. is finally back home, Ajuma is probably doing cardio training with her husband. Sure enough, in the master bedroom, the woman gently checks to see if her husband is asleep, calling out to her partner. The man murmurs that he is wide awake and tells her to sleep. They proceed to spend the night doing cardio training together. The next morning, a bright sun shines down over the massive mansion as the daily routine resumes. Damon loads up the car and politely tells Ajuma that her golf clubs are all securely packed inside. She cheerfully thanks him for the help. She mentions that she almost forgot, but there is a melon waiting in the fridge that he should absolutely eat. She reminds him to make sure he shares some of it with his sisters as well. The simple boy politely wishes her a wonderful day. She bids him goodbye, telling this clueless kid to make sure he studies hard today. Damon enthusiastically agrees. As she drives away, the clueless boy stands there completely amazed, realizing that it was the first time she had ever actually given him words of encouragement. He senses that something has been completely different about her attitude ever since yesterday. Later on, as the day passes, this dumb kid starts getting a little hungry and suddenly remembers the melon sitting in the fridge. He happily decides to prepare it and slices it up neatly on a cutting board. Taking a bite, he finds it completely delicious, marveling at the fact that Ajuma actually left him such a tasty treat. This simple monkey decides that he should share the food with Najong Nuna first. He smiles, realizing he can also use this as an opportunity to study some English with her while he is there. He heads over to her room and quietly calls out to see if she is currently busy. He walks right inside holding a tray of freshly sliced melon, but just as he offers it, he stops dead in his tracks in complete shock, realizing that a completely unexpected person is sitting right there in her room. Damon shuffles awkwardly into the room and notices that Ga-jung is present, nervously offering her some of his freshly sliced melon. This simple monkey immediately decides it is best to make a quick exit, realizing that if she catches him lingering around her space for too long, he is completely screwed. However, before he can successfully escape the room, Ga-jung loudly calls out for him to wait. She strictly commands this dumb kid to come over to her, leaving Damon with the dreadful realization that he is totally doomed. Instead of yelling at him, she surprisingly comments that his pressure feels good, but instructs him to press a little harder against her back. As he begins massaging her, she praises his unexpected skills, noting that he is actually pretty good at doing this. The highly anxious boy feels a sudden wave of relief, realizing that if he messes up this task, he might just get violently struck in the back by his terrifying sister. Ga-jung continues to direct his movements, pointing out that he needs to use a much softer technique. An entire hour quickly slips by, and Damon reflects on how intensely scary Ga-jung Nuna can normally be. Yet, feeling how soft she is serves as a sudden, intense reminder that she really is a girl after all. This simple monkey starts to panic. He cannot help but notice how incredibly smooth and attractive her legs look up close. Unaware of his internal panic, Ga-jung casually suggests that since he is already working on her legs, he might as well move his hands a little higher up. She calls him a brat and explains that her hands are incredibly tense as well, ordering him to keep going exactly like that without stopping. Meanwhile, Ga-jung quietly realizes to herself that his hands actually feel surprisingly wonderful on her skin. Then they started a deep massage session to enhance the experience. Suddenly, a loud voice echoes through the massive house calling out Damon's name, causing him to instantly freeze in pure terror as reality breaks his focus. Meanwhile, Ajuma has finally returned to the estate and looks around in complete confusion, wondering why the entire home is so completely quiet and empty. She calls out for Damon, wandering down the hallway to see if he happens to be studying English with Na-jeong at the moment. Walking through the hallway, Ajuma suddenly pauses when she hears a sussy noise that seems to be coming directly from Na-jeong's bedroom. She catches the faint sound of heavy breathing followed by an authoritative demand to do the task properly, which instantly makes her wonder what on earth is happening inside. Fearing the worst, she swings the door open and loudly demands to know what Na-jeong is doing, only to find the clueless monkey Damon standing there looking utterly startled. When she questions his presence and asks where Na-jeong went, the awkward boy stammers out an apology, admitting he has no idea where his sister is either. It takes Ajuma another moment to realize that the person lying face down on the floor is actually Ga-jeong, who casually looks back to acknowledge her mother's sudden return without an ounce of shame. Ga-jeong casually explains that her muscles were incredibly tense from her workout, so she forced the simple boy to give her a massage, noting that his hands are surprisingly skilled. Fearing any potential domestic drama, Ajuma immediately puts on a dramatic display, warning her daughter that it would cause massive trouble if the master of the house ever witnessed such a sussy sight. Ga-jeong merely whines about her mother's overreaction, prompting Ajuma to turn her strict gaze back to Damon, ordering the dumb kid that he can only return to his studies after he completely cleans her golf clubs. As Damon wraps up the intense stretching session with a heavy sigh, both of them let out a breath of pure exhaustion. However, during the massage, the clumsy boy had accidentally let his hand slip, causing Ga-jeong to flinch in surprise. She immediately points a threatening finger at him, strictly warning the absolute dummy that if he ever tries anything weird like that again, he will be completely dead. The terrified boy frantically apologizes for his terrible timing and lack of awareness, but his demanding sister bluntly states that he should just expect to provide these messages on occasion before ordering him to get lost. Later that night, the simple monkey lies in his room reflecting on how getting to interact with his older sister in such a sussy way feels entirely like a dream. He cannot help but anxiously wonder what might have happened if Ajuma had not interrupted them, questioning whether they would have done cardio training. The next morning, a loud shout echoing through the grand mansion abruptly shatters his academic focus. The clueless boy realizes with immense bitterness that the moment the master of the house leaves for business, the wicked woman immediately goes right back to treating him like a common servant. He sighs heavily, deciding it is best to just quickly deliver her hot coffee so he can escape back to his books, even though he finds her taste for hot beverages in the middle of summer completely absurd. Damon walks into the living room and politely serves the hot coffee, only for Ajuma to instantly change her mind and demand that he bring another one packed with ice instead. Before the confused boy can even process the sudden command, an unexpected visitor sneaks up from behind and delivers a playful smack directly to his rear, loudly admiring his tight physique. The startled monkey shrieks in pure horror, realizing that his eccentric Aunt Hana has just arrived. While Hana marvels at how incredibly big and strong he has grown, Ajuma loses her temper and strictly commands her sister to sit down and behave. Hana merely chuckles, telling her sister not to get so bent out of shape over a harmless bit of affection toward her favorite nephew. Hana sighs dreamily about how wonderful it must be to live with such a fresh young man, but Ajuma scoffs coldly, reminding her that the boy is not even her blood relative. She then glares at Damon, barking at the simple slave to stop standing around like an idiot and fetch her iced coffee already. Once the dumb kid scurries back to the kitchen, Hana gently points out that her sister's words were incredibly harsh since the boy was well within earshot, reminding her that she once claimed to love him like a real son. Ajuma lets out a deeply dramatic sigh, complaining about how ungrateful her household has become. She laments that she truly believes she raised him as her own, but after Da-jeong aggressively called her a complete hypocrite the day before, all the joy was entirely sucked out of her life. She bitterly reflects on how children always grow up wanting independence, without ever learning to respect their elders, making everything feel completely meaningless. Hana jokes that she is sounding like an old grandma, but kindly reassures her that raising another person's child is an incredibly difficult task, and that she is doing a fantastic job. Hana tries to reassure Ajuma that it is not the first time Da-jeong has acted so incredibly rude, advising her sister not to stress herself out too much over the situation. Turning the conversation around, Ajuma demandingly inquires why Hana's even lounging around her house when they are already scheduled to face each other on the golf field next week anyway. She mockingly points out that Hana seemed completely irritated after losing their match just the day before. Hana quickly fires back that her foul mood was entirely due to the brutal summer heat, calling her sister a complete bimbo. She then playfully taunts Ajuma for driving her ball straight into the bunker yet again, especially since the wind was not even blowing to blame it on. This playful teasing instantly irritates Ajuma, who begins to silently wonder if this annoying girl is currently going through menopause to explain why she is getting so easily worked up. Losing her temper entirely, Ajuma snaps that it is absolutely not menopause and strictly orders her sister to stop trying to pick a fight and just get back to her own home. Hana casually responds that she was fully planning on leaving anyway, mockingly telling her sister to practice incredibly hard so she can try to go easy on her during their next game. As Hana walks away, the furious woman fumes silently about her useless sister, resolving to seriously win the upcoming match and beat that stuck-up nose back down. She grumbles about how her sister was always far worse at the sport than her, leaving her completely bewildered as to how she suddenly managed to get so much better. Seeking a way to turn the tables, she suddenly barks out to Damon, strictly ordering the clueless boy to make sure he completely frees up his entire schedule for the following day. The confused boy can only offer a timid, questioning response, and before he knows it, the next day arrives. Standing out on the massive green field under a clear blue sky, the simpleton Damon gasps in absolute amazement, marveling at how the luxurious golf course looks exactly like a scene straight out of a television drama. Ajuma instantly dismisses his wide-eyed awe, bluntly telling the dumb kid to stop daydreaming and just follow her lead. Stepping up to the tee, Damon focuses intently on the ball, confidently realizing that he can finally feel the proper rhythm this time, and is absolutely going to smash it. The absolute dummy takes a massive, aggressive swing while letting out a loud shout, only for his club to dig directly into the grass and chunk up a massive pile of dirt. Observing his pathetic attempt, Ajuma mockingly asks if he came all the way to the course just to dig holes, strictly pointing out that he is holding an expensive golf club rather than a common farm hoe. She reminds the simple dummy that the actual objective of the sport is to hit the tiny ball. The thoroughly embarrassed boy stammers out a pathetic whine, complaining that the game is simply far too difficult for him to grasp. Ajuma tells the clueless kid to just stand back and watch a true master demonstrate how it is properly done. Damon swallows hard in anticipation as the woman sets up her stance, carefully explaining that he needs to position his body exactly like this while keeping a close, unwavering eye entirely on the ball. She confidently unleashes a powerful swing, but to her absolute horror, the ball slices terribly through the air. Both of them watch in stunned silence as the ball plops directly into a nearby water hazard, resulting in a complete miss. The caddy approaches them with an apologetic tone, explaining that they just received an urgent call because the group playing behind them is actively waiting. The caddy points out the embarrassing reality that they are only on the 5th hole, and Ajuma has already managed to lose every single one of her golf balls, leaving them completely stranded on what their next move should be. Ajuma quickly puts on a dramatic display of shock, falsely claiming that this kind of disaster has never once happened to her before. After offering a frantic string of apologies to the caddy, she confidently announces that they will simply quickly retrieve the lost ball from the water hazard and move straight on to the next hole. She barks at Damon to hurry up and step into the water, demandingly asking if he can see anything beneath the surface yet. The awkward boy nervously admits that he cannot see a thing, realizing that he will likely have to blindly feel around in the murky pond to locate the ball. As he wades in, the moron silently reflects that he honestly cannot blame his aunt for making fun of her, reasoning that while he has a perfectly valid excuse as a beginner, Ajuma has taken professional lessons for years and still managed to fail this miserably. Suddenly, the clown turns around and gasps in utter shock upon realizing that Ajuma has waded right into the water alongside him. Looking closer, the easily distracted monkey notices her proper golf attire and cannot help but reflect on how her jacket looks like it is about to tear. Shaking off his sussy thoughts, he tells himself it cannot be helped and realizes he needs to focus on scanning the water as well. The embarrassed boy awkwardly mumbles that he is perfectly capable of handling the search all by himself. Ajuma strictly rejects his offer, pointing out that the caddy is actively watching them, meaning they need to find the ball as quickly as possible so they can finally move on. The submissive kid quietly complies, though he bitterly notes that his eyes keep helplessly fixating on her gym body. Suddenly, a bright glimmer catches his eye beneath the water, prompting him to reach down and proudly announce that he has successfully found the lost golf ball. Ajuma is instantly filled with an immense wave of relief, which makes the simpleton Damon silently reflect on how incredibly bizarre it is that a wealthy, grown woman could get this radiantly happy over a single lost ball. Staring at her uncharacteristically bright smile, the clueless boy catches himself unexpectedly realizing that she actually looks quite adorable in this light. Ajuma abruptly snaps him back to reality, ordering Damon to take proper care of the retrieved ball. But just as the simple boy turns to comply, the clumsy woman suddenly loses her footing on the slippery mud, letting out a frantic, terrified shriek as she completely loses her balance and begins falling backward straight into the water. As Ajuma completely loses her balance, the moron immediately springs into action to catch her. Once the chaos settles, Damon frantically checks to see if she is entirely okay. While she confirms that she is fine, she points out a rather sussy detail, drawing attention to exactly where his hand has landed. The clueless boy looks down and realizes he is holding onto her hand tightly. This realization makes the absolute dummy squeak out in pure panic, frantically stammering that he was completely unaware of his own actions. He quickly pulls his hand away and blurts out a desperate apology, instantly terrifying himself with the stressful thought that she is about to loudly yell at him for his sussy touch. Despite looking noticeably flustered by the unexpected touch, the woman surprisingly dismisses the incident, calmly stating that it is perfectly fine. She casually instructs him that they should just head over to practice a bit more, which the compliant boy quickly accepts. Wiping away his sweat, the simple monkey lets out a massive sigh of relief, feeling incredibly glad that she did not lose her temper after all. However, as they walk along, the sneaky kid cannot help but reflect on the encounter, privately thinking that her cardio gear actually felt much more updated than his older sister's. He even chuckles to himself about how the feeling is still vividly lingering in his hands. Before they can get any more practice in, a massive rumble of thunder suddenly echoes across the sky. A terrifying bolt of lightning flashes right over the course, bringing an abrupt and heavy downpour with it. Ajuma is caught completely off guard by how incredibly fast the weather turned. Reacting quickly, the young monkey shouts out to Ajuma and strictly tells her that they absolutely need to just run for cover immediately. The panicked woman quickly agrees, and the two of them scurry across the field together as Damon tries his best to shield her from the heavy rain continuously pouring down on them. Once they manage to find safe shelter inside the building, Ajuma looks out the window with a heavy sigh, complaining about how the rain just keeps coming down without stopping. Damon stands beside her and agrees, noting that it really is completely pouring out there. Looking at the gray skies, the woman realizes that the storm does not look like it will clear up anytime soon. She muses aloud that it feels like a total waste of their effort to just pack up and head straight back home. Hearing this, the clueless boy asks what they ought to do instead. After pondering the rainy situation for another moment, Ajuma turns to him with a serious expression and states that they should head over to a specific location. The dumb kid nervously stammers to know exactly where she wants to go, while secretly wondering to himself if she could possibly be suggesting a short membership training retreat for some intense group bonding. Later, Ajuma comments on how remarkably elegant the establishment is, noting that a premium venue like this is an absolute must on a gloomy, rainy day, while looking over at Damon for his thoughts. The simple monkey politely agrees with her, pointing out that on a miserable day like this, one absolutely has to enjoy hot pajian paired with traditional macchioli. However, the clueless boy is secretly quite shocked by the menu choice, because he fully assumed a wealthy woman like her only ever drank expensive wine, making this sudden shift to local rice wine entirely unexpected. Ajuma instructs him to eat plenty and warmly urges him to dive right into the feast. At that moment, the awkward boy reflects on his own rotten mind, realizing that instead of the scandalous retreat he had anticipated, she had simply brought him to a high-end traditional Korean restaurant. Putting on a remarkably pleasant front, the manipulative woman expresses her appreciation to the boy for coming out to play golf with her today, despite knowing he must be incredibly busy preparing for his upcoming university entrance exam. The submissive kid stammeringly reassures her that it was absolutely no trouble at all, weakly noting that he did not really accomplish much on the field today anyway. Ajuma remarks that it must have been quite rough on him out there due to the sudden downpour, before handing him a small cup and telling him to take a drink. The nervous clown stammers back that he is simply not very good at handling alcohol. The woman clicks her tongue in mild annoyance, strictly reminding the simpleton that when an elder offers a drink, a youth is supposed to accept it without complaint. She reassures the timid moron that he does not need to worry about driving her vehicle back later because they can always just call a professional designated driver. Left with no other choice, the dumb kid tilts his head back and gulps down the rice wine. Ajuma enthusiastically cheers him on, telling him to put it straight down the hatch, before offering him some of the delicious food. As he chews, the confused monkey begins to anxiously wonder if she is already heavily intoxicated, since she has absolutely never acted this maternal or tried to feed him like this before. The woman smiles, warmly observing that the boy certainly knows how to pack away a large amount of food. Meanwhile, back at the luxurious mansion, one of the older sisters returns home from a workout session and calls out for her mother. She looks around the completely empty house in confusion, wondering aloud where on earth everyone managed to go in the middle of such a heavy downpour. She bumps into Dajong, who bluntly claims she has no idea about anyone's current whereabouts. When the sister inquires whether Dajong has seen Damon anywhere, Dajong entirely ignores the question and comments on her tied-up hair, admitting it completely startled her because she briefly mistook her sister for their mother. The annoyed sister aggressively tells her to shut up while taking a big gulp of her food. Dajong rubs her stomach and grumbles about being incredibly hungry, complaining to herself that it is highly annoying how their mother is completely refusing to answer her phone calls. Back at the restaurant, the increasingly drunk woman slurs out that they should just drink one more round, calling out for Damon. The anxious boy weakly tries to protest, but she ignores him and commandingly orders him to hurry up and fetch some more drinks. Realizing things are getting out of hand, the responsible monkey firmly states that she should not drink any more alcohol, suggesting they head straight home so she can rest, while mentioning that he already went ahead and called a driver. The stubborn woman completely refuses, loudly whining that even if she goes back to the mansion, her husband is not there anyway because he is always eager to leave on another business trip. She lets out a heavy, depressed sigh, complaining about how thoroughly sick she is of his endless trips. She laments that she is a woman who deeply desires to be trained, crying out about how incredibly lonely she feels. She bitterly reflects that she raised her daughters only to be met with cruel words, concluding that everything in her life is entirely useless. Damon watches this unexpected display in complete silence, realizing that she is suddenly dumping all of her deep sorrows directly onto him. The simple monkey deduces that absolutely nothing sussy happened between her and her husband the previous night, which feels entirely shocking and unexpected to him. The awkward kid gently reasserts that it would be best for them to head back before the hour gets any later, but the stubborn woman dismisses him entirely, stating she is staying put and that he can leave by himself if he wants. She looks outside to see if the rain has finally cleared up. Once the designated driver finally arrives and pulls away, Damon tries to provide the driver with their residential address, but the heavily intoxicated woman instantly cuts him off. She explicitly orders the driver to take them straight to a local gym instead, slurring that she needs a proper place to sober up a little bit. The driver politely complies with her request, leaving the terrified, certified idiot panicking in the back seat, anxiously wondering if going to a gym will really be alright. The woman mumbles about how incredibly tipsy she feels before slumping heavily onto the car seat. The panicked boy calls out her name in fear. Before he knows it, they arrive at their destination, and the stressed moron can only groan to himself about the reality that they actually checked into a hotel room together. The joyful woman slurs that she is going to immediately wash up and stumbles straight toward the bathroom. Left standing entirely alone, the clueless boy reflects on the mind-blowing reality that this is his very first time ever stepping foot inside a place like this, and it happens to be with Ajuma of all people. The completely terrified monkey frantically panics over what his next move should be, anxiously debating whether he should just abandon her there and make a quick escape back to the mansion. Meanwhile, back at home, an irritated Gajong tries calling Damon's phone, only to be met with an automated voicemail stating that the number is currently unavailable. The demanding girl clicks her tongue in frustration, wondering what on earth the simple monkey is doing that is causing him to ignore her call when she specifically wants him to give her another massage. She closes her eyes as she vividly recalls the feeling of his hands during their previous session, unable to stop thinking about how surprisingly effective his rough touch actually was. Back in the gym room, Ajuma casually tells the clueless boy that he needs to go wash up as well since he must be feeling incredibly sticky from the summer rain. The submissive kid quickly complies and heads toward the bathroom. As he walks away, the anxious moron realizes that this entire situation has become incredibly dangerous, wondering if the woman simply does not view him as a big boy since she is acting completely sussy around him. Standing under the water, the confused clown scrubs himself simply because he was ordered to do so, deeply reflecting on the absolute absurdity of his current circumstances. He tries to tell himself that he is a grown boy too, before quickly reasoning that absolutely nothing is going to happen between them anyway. Still, the simpleton cannot help but find it mind-blowing that a servant boy who is usually forced to do endless household chores suddenly got to play a round of golf and visit a premium gym room like this. He smiles as he recalls her strict warning about keeping their drinking session an absolute secret from her husband. The naive monkey genuinely feels as though he has managed to get much closer to her today, silently pondering if he will ever be lucky enough to get another golden opportunity like this. Stepping back out into the room feeling completely refreshed, Damon calls out to see if Ajuma has managed to sober up a little bit. He pauses when he receives no reply, realizing to his surprise that the heavily intoxicated woman has already fallen fast asleep on the bed. The easily distracted moron steps closer to inspect her, instantly finding her sleeping face incredibly beautiful. Completely losing his mind, the absolute dummy wonders if it would be alright to ask her for a cardio training session. The reckless monkey slowly reaches his hand out and touches her face to wake her up. However, the peaceful moment is shattered instantly when she lets out a quiet sound and suddenly wakes up, leaving the terrified, certified idiot gasping in absolute horror as he realizes he is completely busted. The panicked boy's sussy thoughts briefly run wild as he considers a highly proper action toward her face. However, the heavily intoxicated woman merely lets out a groggy sound, slurring that she is incredibly thirsty. Realizing he was not actually caught red-handed, the startled monkey immediately backpedals and frantically promises to fetch her some water right away. The certified idiot lets out a massive sigh of relief over how badly that sudden awakening just scared him. Sitting up on the bed, Ajuma sleepily notes that she must have been completely exhausted from her day. The helpful clown quickly hands over the glass, telling her to drink up to help her sober up. She grunts a brief word of thanks and greedily gulps the liquid down. Looking out at the gloomy weather, she comments on how incredibly depressing and dark it always seems when it rains like this. As she sits there, the easily distracted moron cannot help but notice that her outfit looks very proper. Suddenly breaking the silence, Ajuma remembers something and eagerly points out that the boy is surprisingly skilled at giving massages. She casually commands him to give her one right then and there. The completely blindsided clown stammers in utter disbelief at the shocking request. She doubles down, reminding the dumb kid that she knows all about how he previously gave one to Gajiang. This reminder sends the anxious monkey into a silent panic, as he vividly recalls how that exact session with his sister had almost escalated into an entirely sussy encounter. Noticing his hesitation, the woman flatly asks if he is refusing simply because it is her. Terrified of offending her, the submissive monkey frantically assures her that is not the case at all and eagerly agrees to do it. Trying to keep things as safe as possible, the awkward boy announces that he will start from her feet. As he begins, the observant clown notes to himself how remarkably well she takes care of her toes. The relaxed woman lets out a satisfied sigh, commenting on how incredibly good the pressure feels. Ajuma continues to praise his unexpected talent, marveling at how genuinely good he is at this. Yet, she cannot help but marvel at why a simple house servant is so incredibly talented at massaging, finally deciding it is best to just lie down and enjoy it. Back at the grand mansion, the household finally hears the front door swing open, signaling that their mother has returned home. Ajuma steps through the entryway trying to look as completely composed as possible, while the awkward clown Damon follows quietly a few steps behind her. Bumping into them in the hallway, Dajong casually checks to see if everything went smoothly during their time away. Before anyone can even answer, the demanding girl completely drops her polite tone, bluntly whining that she is starving, and ordering her mother to go whip up some food for her immediately. Narrowing her eyes suspiciously, Dajong looks back and forth between them, aggressively questioning why the two of them are arriving back at the house together. The skeptical girl demands to know if her mother managed to do something sussy out there with the submissive monkey. The clever woman effortlessly brushes off the intense grilling, smoothly deflecting the accusation by claiming they merely played a standard round of golf, and asking what else they could have possibly been doing. Turning her sharp gaze toward the silent bystander, Ajuma strictly commands the clueless moron that he needs to get straight back to his room, to focus entirely on his studies, an order that the timid kid quickly accepts before trying to sneak away unnoticed. Even with Damon out of the picture, the annoying daughter completely refuses to let the matter drop. She continues to pry aggressively into their schedule, playfully demanding to know what they actually did out on the field, and asking if the two of them were secretly out drinking alcohol together. Ajuma lets out an irritated sigh at the constant interrogation, asking her daughter why on earth she is acting so incredibly strange today. Trying to end the conversation, the woman promises that she will head into the kitchen to prepare a hot meal if the girl can just manage to sit down and wait patiently. But just as the woman turns to walk away, the sharp-eyed girl suddenly catches a glimpse of something unusual and halts her mother in her tracks, asking what a specific mark on her clothes is supposed to be. Looking down at her own attire, the manipulative woman completely freezes in absolute panic as she notices sweat resting right on her fabric. The terrified woman internally loses her mind as she mistakenly assumes the sweat looks exactly like training sweat, leaving the frantic lady utterly horrified as she desperately ponders what on earth she should do to cover up this absolute catastrophe. Stepping through the door, the arriving sister announces her return and immediately comments on her intense hunger, wondering what is available for dinner. The mother quickly responds that she is about to cook some brisket for the family. Curious about her sibling's schedule, the younger sister inquires why she has been returning home so late recently, questioning if she is already preparing for her upcoming exams, even though they are still quite a ways off. The older sister quickly dismisses the idea, explaining that she has simply been participating in various study groups lately. Unconvinced, the playful younger sister teases her about whether she has secretly found a partner. The older sister firmly states there is nothing of the sort going on, advising her sibling to stop worrying about others and go find a partner of her own instead. The younger sister casually shoots back that she is currently just in the process of choosing the right one before announcing that she is going to head off to wash up. Meanwhile, back in his room, The simple monkey Damon collapses onto his bed with a heavy sigh, reflecting on how absolutely incredible Ajuma was during their secret getaway. This certified idiot lies there completely dazed, wondering to himself how many times he had actually lost track of the moment during their training. He begins to speculate whether she has been unable to do cardio training with her husband lately, realizing it felt as though all of her pent-up frustration had suddenly exploded all at once. The clueless boy sighs deeply, thinking about how wonderful it would be if he could train with her just one more time. Right on cue, the mother's voice echoes through the house, calling out to everyone that dinner is finally ready. Upstairs in her own room, the exhausted woman lets out a tired breath, announcing to the household that she isn't particularly hungry and instructing them to just clean up after themselves because she is far too exhausted to join them. The family compliantly accepts her demand. Left alone with her thoughts, the stressed woman laments how terrible the entire situation was, scolding herself for being crazy enough to make such a massive drunken mistake at her age. She tries to justify her actions by reasoning that she was simply far too lonely lately due to a lack of cardio training. But she finds herself shivering as she realizes she can still vividly feel the lingering training feelings. Although she frantically tells herself that she absolutely shouldn't indulge in these thoughts, she completely loses control and begins self-cardio training. The next day arrives, and another sister walks down the hallway, calling out for Damon to see what he is currently up to. She announces that their mother made short ribs for them, but pauses in confusion upon discovering that the absolute dummy is still fast asleep in his room. She openly wonders if the boy is feeling unwell, grumbling about what on earth he could have possibly done the day before to still be completely out cold like this. Sitting down on the edge of his bed, she looks at his sleeping form and suddenly gasps in pure shock upon noticing that his cardio training gear has become remarkably fully charged while he sleeps. Observing that absolutely no one else is currently home and seeing that the clown is locked in an incredibly deep sleep, her heart begins to race. Meanwhile, far away at a corporate office building, the mood is much more professional as the chairman praises his staff for their good work, deciding to end the workday early today. His employee respectfully complies with the order. The two men step into the elevator and ride it down from the 24th floor. Upon stepping out, they are suddenly greeted by an acquaintance who happily calls out to Jung Chul-hyung and Jung-hoon, cheerfully noting that it has certainly been quite a while since they last crossed paths. The chairman lets out a breath and politely tells Mr. Cho that he can head out first, prompting a respectful bow and compliance from his employee. Meanwhile, the other men decide to head out together for some drinks, a plan that is enthusiastically accepted as they walk away from the office building. As a man in a suit stands outside, a voice suddenly calls out to him, prompting him to turn around. He watches as Na-jeong comes running toward him in the warm evening light, looking completely thrilled to see him. Approaching him quickly, the young woman wonders aloud if her father is also getting off work early today. The man replies that it is possible, mentioning that her uncles were just visiting a moment ago. She wonders why they would show up out of nowhere, but he admits he does not really know either, suggesting they focus on getting something to eat instead, which she readily agrees to. When she suggests having kimchi stew, the clown acts completely surprised, wondering if it is truly acceptable for a princess like her to eat such a common meal. Na-jeong playfully dismisses the royal title, telling the overreacting man to stop making those kinds of silly comments while holding his hand. Feeling her sussiness, the cautious man quietly warns her that someone might see them together. The stubborn girl casually reasons that everything is perfectly fine as long as no one from her family home catches them in the act. The man points out the harsh reality that getting caught would be an absolute disaster for his career, resulting in him losing his job and becoming completely unemployed. Na-jeong merely huffs, stating that it would be much better if he got fired anyway, since she plans to become a doctor and can easily take care of him. The man clicks his tongue at her reckless words, but she confidently tells him to just put his full trust in her hands. Just then, a familiar voice echoes nearby, catching the attention of a hidden observer who happens to recognize the tone immediately. When her companion asks if it is someone she knows, the girl confirms that it is indeed her older sister. Peeking out, this sneaky monkey Dajong is completely stunned to see Na-jeong Nuna out in public with a man, vividly recalling how her sibling had just explicitly claimed to be completely single. Seizing the perfect opportunity to cause trouble, this malicious girl pulls out her phone and immediately snaps a picture to save the evidence. Her companion wonders why she is bothering to take a photo, but the absolute clown simply smirks, noting that she is saving it just in case because this discovery is incredibly interesting. She cannot help but mockingly realize that this must be the secret study group her sister was talking about earlier. Inside a premium lounge, the older man playfully calls a woman over to sit next to him. He leans in to take a look, commenting that the look of Seoul girls is truly on an entirely different level. The woman giggles at his forward behavior, noting that he has not even had a single drink yet. Meanwhile, his boisterous brother loudly chirps in about his eccentric preferences, making remarks about her appearance. He then turns his attention to Jungman, boisterously claiming that the chairman shares the exact same preferences based on the look of his own wife. The loud man laughs hysterically, asserting that Jungman's wife possesses an absolutely incredible gym physique that is easily twice as impressive. The woman pretends to be slighted, pouting that her own charms cannot even compete with such a standard. The older man quickly dismisses her worries, assuring her that he prefers women with prominent gym physique like her instead. He continues to boast about his sister-in-law's striking six-pack body, recalling how her exercise clothing always commands a lot of attention in public. He confidently tells his companion that his brother's wife shares a similarly remarkable training physique. Annoyed by the sussy talk, Jungman firmly clears his throat and cuts them off, stating that they have said quite enough about the mother of his children. The older brother, Jungchul, tries to laugh off the tension, reminding Jungman that it has been a long time since they gathered as brothers, so he should loosen up and have some fun instead of being so incredibly serious. Jungman remains completely unimpressed, telling him to stop wasting time with pointless chatter and bluntly demanding to know what he actually wanted. In response, the rowdy brother calls over a young hostess, slaps a massive stack of cash onto the table, and instructs her to show exceptional cardio exercise to his younger brother today. Jungman glares at him, openly questioning what on earth his brother thinks he is doing. Jungchul casually waves off his concerns, claiming he is simply making sure his sibling gets to fully unwind today, while promising the anxious girl that the entire stack of cash is hers if she performs well while training back at the mansion. The scene shifts to the bedroom, where the simpleton Damon finally starts to stir, groaning heavily about how intensely sore his body feels. This absolute clown rolls over in a daze, completely losing track of how long he has been asleep and wondering what time it could possibly be. He mindlessly fumbles around his bed searching for his phone, but his groggy movements come to a sudden halt when he registers a highly unusual feeling. The certified idiot instantly panics, frantically trying to comprehend what is happening and wondering if Ajuma could have possibly sneaked into his bed. To his absolute horror and bewilderment, he looks down only to discover that it is actually Gajong Nuna lying right beside him. The clueless boy is entirely frozen, completely unable to process why she would be inside his room or what on earth is taking place. He nervously shakes her shoulder and whispers her name, but this simple monkey quickly realizes that she is completely out cold and entirely unresponsive. Realizing that his sister is locked in an incredibly deep sleep, a sudden thought flashes through his mind right as the narrative rewinds to explore the chaotic events that took place 3 hours earlier. Gajong sits right beside the sleeping boy and swallows hard, immediately telling herself that this is entirely wrong. This confused sister realizes she needs to pull herself together rather than acting like a complete clown. Staring down at him, she cannot help but reflect on when he managed to get so good at cardio exercise, noting that his shoulders have become noticeably broader than before. She realizes that his broad frame looks absolutely perfect to use as an arm pillow, though she immediately scolds herself for acting so strangely. Looking at the quiet boy, she silently confesses that she has been feeling incredibly lonely lately. She remembers the bitter reality of being dumped over a cold text message after going out with her partner for an entire year. The sudden message from her ex-partner, Kang Minho, simply stated that he was going to the army, leaving her completely blindsided. She recalls being so profoundly shocked by the sudden news that she could not even cry, which drove her to start exercising aggressively just to find a release for her built-up anger and stress. She reflects that when this simple monkey Damon gave her a massage earlier, simply feeling another person's help completely set her off. This tired girl sleepily reminds the oblivious boy not to misunderstand her behavior, letting out a big yawn as she notes how incredibly drowsy she feels before drifting straight off to sleep in his room. The narrative returns to the present as Gajong finally begins to stir, feeling completely disoriented as she tries to figure out where she is and when she managed to fall asleep. She suddenly notices a sharp shift in the bed, letting out a gasp of pure shock as the atmosphere changes completely. To her utter bewilderment, she finds herself in a cardio training session with the dumb boy. Inside the tense meeting room, Chairman Jungman lets out a heavy sigh and firmly tells his brother Jungchul that he absolutely cannot grant him any more corporate shares. The rowdy brother merely scoffs at the refusal, pointing out that Jungman had used the exact same excuse in the past, right before he reluctantly increased their shares by a tiny margin anyway. Jungman fires back that the move was entirely impossible back then too, wondering how he is supposed to reasonably explain such a reckless decision to the shareholders. Jungchul mockingly dismisses his younger brother's deep anxieties, wondering how he could possibly live his entire life worrying so much over standard protocol. This bold clown reminds the chairman that it was their own father who originally established the entire company from the ground up. Because Jungman was not the one who personally built the empire from scratch, Jungchul reasons that the family is well within its rights to demand this kind of corporate favor. He instructs the chairman to handle the task of persuading the shareholders himself and ensure that they each walk away with a comfortable 15% stake, confidently asserting that they will not be asking for anything more than that. Infuriated by the endless greed, Jungman slams his hand onto the table and fiercely commands his brother to put an immediate end to this absolute nonsense, declaring that the request is completely impossible. He points out that he has completely run out of convenient excuses to appease the board, leaving him wondering if his siblings truly want to see the entire company go down in flames. Jungchul casually shrugs off the explosive outburst, telling the chairman to go ahead and do whatever he wants. He then signals to his companion to hand over a device, mockingly noting that since Jungman won't cooperate, it is only fair that they do whatever they want as well. With a smug grin, this manipulative clown displays a highly compromising photograph on his phone, proudly boasting that it is an exceptionally good shot, before realizing that the chairman's missus would absolutely love to see it. Meanwhile, at a nearby cafe, the atmosphere is far more melancholy as the man in the suit checks his phone and apologetically tells Najong that he needs to leave immediately to check on the boss. Startled by the sudden departure, Najong asks if something bad happened. The man notes that the current situation looks incredibly grim, which makes the disappointed girl let out a soft, sad sigh. Realizing that the interruption cannot be helped, she pushes aside her own disappointment and urges him to get moving as quickly as possible. The man bids her a fond farewell, telling her to ensure she gets back home safely while giving her head a little pat. Najong warmly tells him not to worry about her, just as a waiter arrives at the table to drop off the delicious desserts they had previously ordered. Left entirely alone, Najong quietly thanks the server and stares down blankly at the assortment of sweet treats left completely untouched in front of her. Elsewhere in the city, a waiter gracefully guides a lively group of friends to their restaurant table. One of the girls complains to Dajong about her failure to introduce her to a viable partner, but the other friend quickly reassures her that there is still one more person on the way. The observant friend points out that Dajong's personal standards are always far too high, suggesting that instead of constantly adding to her tragic casualty count, she should try developing a cardio relationship with someone she already knows. Dajong sharply tells her to drop the subject, changing the topic to ask if the group is down for an exciting trip abroad during their upcoming break. The friend immediately declines the invitation, explaining that she needs to focus entirely on studying to secure her professional license. She enviously reminds Dajong that because she has an incredibly rich family to fall back on, she can easily coast by with a passing grade and graduate without ever trying so hard. Dajong scoffs at the remark, stating that she is only looking at things from her own comfortable perspective and noting that if she personally loses out to her older brother, she will end up a total beggar. Her friend is quite surprised by the intense sibling rivalry, wondering if Dajong's family is truly that staggeringly wealthy. The third friend playfully tries to act cute, prompting the others to bluntly tell her to stop the cutesy behavior. Turning serious again, the friend advises Dajong to take a much greater interest in her family's enterprise since she will likely be expected to manage it down the road, especially since her second sister is currently on track to become a doctor. Dajong mutters a brief, non-committal response. The friend then inquires about that Damon guy, wondering if the boy is still living under their roof. Annoyed by the mere mention of his name, Dajong tells her to completely forget about him, admitting she fully believed the annoying boy would finally be gone for good once he managed to get into college. She grumbles that because the total loser is currently stuck repeating his studies for next year's university entrance exam, they are forced to house him for another full year. Intrigued by her hostile demeanor, her curious friend asks if the two of them recently had a massive fight. Dajong quickly brushes the probing question aside, aggressively ordering her friends to just shut up and drink up. Her startled friend whines about what she could have possibly done wrong, while the other girl urges them to just hurry up and call Siyoung. Dajong grumpily complies with the request, but her mind immediately drifts back to a highly irritating memory from her junior high school days. She vividly recalls a specific afternoon when she had awkwardly approached the absolute dummy Damon to give him a box of chocolate for an upcoming exam, strictly barking at him to just take the offering without a fuss. Back in the memory, the clueless boy looked up in surprise just as Najong Nuna unexpectedly walked through the front door a bit early. The simple monkey had instantly completely ignored Dajong, enthusiastically calling out to Najong to beg for help with his English studies, while happily suggesting that they all share Dajong's chocolate together. Dajong had watched the scene unfold in absolute fury, fuming over the fact that he had the absolute nerve to share her personal gift with another sister. Snapping back to the present, Dajong bitterly reflects that the boy is nothing but a complete scumbag who has absolutely no appreciation for her past kindness. She grumbles to herself that despite constantly being good to him ever since they were young children, his entire focus was always entirely centered around Najeong Nuna this and Najeong Nuna that, which makes her feel completely sick to her stomach. Her friend pipes up to note that she actually likes Najeong Nuna too, casually declaring that her sweet older sister is every single man's ultimate crush. Dajeong's heart skips a beat as she asks her friend what exactly makes her sister so universally appealing to everyone. The friend notes that it is basically everything about her, prompting Dajeong to shudder in deep disgust and call the entire conversation completely gross. She decides it is best to just purge the thought from her mind entirely, turning back to see if Seyoung has finally answered her calls. Her friend confirms that she is actively on her way over. Right on cue, their friend Na Seyoung finally arrives at the table, prompting a deeply irritated Dajeong to loudly complain about how incredibly late she managed to be. Na Seyoung apologizes to the group for her poor timing, explaining that she was entirely caught up, handling a sudden task her older brother had asked her to complete. The group welcomes her warmly and urges her to come sit down while cheerfully wishing her a happy birthday, though the conversation takes a quick turn when an observant friend notices her stunning outfit and realizes it is a highly coveted limited edition fall-winter piece, making them feel incredibly jealous. Seyoung smoothly accepts the praise, revealing that her father was the one who had generously purchased the rare attire for her as a special birthday present. Not wanting to be left out of the spotlight, Dajeong proudly chimes in to present her own birthday offering, handing over a luxury box from Tiffany & Company that earns a sweet word of appreciation from her friend. The pleasant mood takes a highly awkward turn, however, when a curious friend abruptly drops a bomb by asking Seyoung if her family's corporate group is truly doing all right, highlighting a realization that the business was rumored to be completely taken over by outsiders. Another friend immediately reacts in surprise, openly wondering if things have suddenly gone completely downhill for their prominent family. Visibly put on the spot, Seyoung takes a heavy, nervous gulp of her drink before forcing a tense laugh, quickly assuring the table that the rumors are nothing and that they have absolutely nothing to worry about. At a local golf practice range, the mother practices her swing but notes with frustration that things are simply not going well. As she huffs over another poor attempt, her sister approaches and playfully remarks that she is still hanging around the facility. Annoyed by the presence, the mother bluntly tells her not to talk to her. The teasing sister notes that she is trying a bit too hard, mockingly pointing out the realization that her husband isn't exactly waiting for her at home anyway, and adding that her own children never listen to a single word she says. The mother remains completely silent as the club's instructor, Coach Choi, announces that he will be heading out first for the day. The talkative sister immediately pouts, asking if she hadn't explicitly invited him out to grab some drinks together. The instructor nervously explains that his wife requested his quick return home, prompting the sister to tease him about acting like such a doting newlywed before wishing him well. Watching him leave, she sighs enviously over the instructor's happy marriage, grumbling about what her own husband could possibly be up to and calling the entire situation highly annoying. She casually muses that she should probably just find a side partner to keep her company. Taking another swing, the mother strictly commands her to put an end to the absolute nonsense about finding a partner. The unbothered sister retorts that women these days frequently maintain both a husband and a completely separate cardio trainer, mockingly realizing that the two of them are just being overly conservative. She confidently asserts that her brother-in-law is almost certainly using business trips as a convenient excuse to go out and have cardio training with other women. Infuriated by the comment, the mother snaps at her to watch her mouth, defensively declaring that her husband is absolutely not that type of man. The sister chuckles at the intense overreaction, playfully wondering if the husband really is having a sussy connection, and asking if she has managed to uncover any concrete evidence. Feeling a sudden wave of guilt, the mother nervously stammers that it isn't like that at all, quietly reflecting on the painful reality that she was actually the one who made a terrible mistake. The sister nonchalantly advises her that if she has no intention of divorcing him, she should just let the matter go entirely, sharing that she adopts the exact same approach by living her life while pretending not to know anything. The mother asks if she is truly doing all right with that arrangement. The boastful sister brags about how incredibly durable her mentality is, revealing her grand plan to simply graduate from marriage once the children are fully grown and settled. She clasps her hands as her heart flutters, dreamily confessing her deep desire to meet a fresh young trainer instead of dealing with her old, outdated husband. She emphasizes that, since they are both highly well-to-do housewives, they ought to at least maintain some reliable second options, leaving the mother to murmur a highly hesitant response. The sister quickly shushes her, delivering a strict warning that they can absolutely never allow themselves to get caught. She points out that if someone is entirely incapable of keeping a secret perfectly hidden, they shouldn't even consider starting a partnership in the first place. The mother wonders if it is truly necessary to think that far ahead, suggesting that a person could simply choose to avoid having an affair altogether. The sister giggles that she wouldn't understand the addicting nature of a secret boost, highlighting her own past office training as prime evidence. The mother realizes her sibling fully understands the underlying reasons behind why people step outside their marriages, prompting the sister to note the common reality that once a person chooses to stray, they are highly likely to do it again. The mother silently reassures herself that people can change once they finally come to their senses, firmly resolving that her own recent cardio training was nothing more than a pure drunken accident that will absolutely never happen a second time. Meanwhile, back in the mansion, Damon is locked in cardio training. The sister in his fantasy breathlessly tells him that he should have properly prepared himself for a situation like this before daring to step foot inside her bedroom. As the training reaches a peak, this foolish monkey reflects on how incredibly strange it is that both Ajuma and his older sister immediately granted him their permission to train them so easily. The arrogant clown begins to wonder if he secretly possesses an extraordinary, hidden charm that he isn't even consciously aware of, something completely capable of immediately charming any woman who crosses his path. His sussy thoughts quickly wander over to his favorite sister, as he begins to ponder how remarkably wonderful it would be to do cardio training like this, with Najong Nuna instead. Exhausted from the massive amount of training, the two of them lie there panting heavily in the quiet room. The delusional monkey proudly resolves to himself that tomorrow he will definitely make his move and try training Najong Nuna. However, as the morning sun rises, the absolute dummy lets out a massive yawn, openly realizing that he might have gone a bit too hard the previous day as a sudden sharp ache strikes his stomach. Najong cheerfully greets her sister upon noticing she is finally out of bed, inquiring about what she managed to do the previous day. Dajong casually explains that she was simply out attending Seyoung's birthday party. Najong acknowledges this and wonders if her friend is doing well, to which Dajong notes that she seems to be doing just fine. However, the critical sister quickly shifts her attention to the food spread on the counter, pointing out that eating so many heavy sweets first thing in the morning will inevitably cause her to gain weight. Najong softly clarifies that she merely brought home a large amount of leftovers from the gathering the night before. She kindly offers to whip up some toast instead, if her sibling isn't in the mood for a sugary meal. The hungover girl immediately rejects the offer, realizing she desperately needs something hot and soupy to help her recover from her intense hangover, before wondering where both their mother and Damon have disappeared to. Najong patiently explains that, since it is currently the weekend, they are likely just sleeping in late, noting that their mother is perfectly free to do whatever she wishes. This defense instantly irritates the spoiled clown Dajong, who bitterly rants about how incredibly thankless the absolute beggar Damon is for daring to sleep in comfortably after their family graciously took him in and allowed him to live a life of comfort. Najong gently chides her sister for harboring such toxic thoughts, reminding her that their father explicitly declared that Damon is to be treated exactly like a true member of the family. Dajong dismisses the notion entirely, stating that it is merely their father's personal opinion. She aggressively presses Najong to realize that their father has never once discussed the future management of the company with either of them. Najong quietly confirms the reality of the situation while holding her drink. Dajong then brings up her friend Jungwoo, pointing out that he is already actively preparing to inherit his own family business, while their own financial future remains completely up in the air. The paranoid girl anxiously speculates whether their father's insistence on calling Damon family means he secretly intends to pass the entire company down to the simpleton. Najong tightly grips her drink bottle and nervously mutters that he would never do such a thing, but Dajong stubbornly resolves to directly interrogate her father the very moment he returns home. Right on cue, the mother glides into the room wearing her robe, wondering what they plan to ask him, and noting that they should be sleeping in more, since it is the weekend. Dajong fumes with intense rage and immediately demands that her mother hand down a strict punishment to Damon. She loudly complains that the lazy servant hasn't even bothered to prepare their morning breakfast because he is still fast asleep, calling his complete lack of awareness entirely too much to handle. The hesitant mother tries to offer a bit of defense, suggesting that the poor boy must be genuinely exhausted. Dajong aggressively dismisses the excuse, yelling that it doesn't matter at all and that the boy is completely avoiding his basic household responsibilities. She strictly orders her mother to go wake him up and scold him immediately, which leaves the anxious woman stammering in total reluctance. Just then, the older sister Gajiong stumbles into the kitchen, stretching her muscles, groaning about her desperate need for caffeine, and asking her mother for a cup of coffee. Seizing another opportunity, Dajiong notes her eldest sibling's arrival and immediately commands Gajiong to be the one to go up and wake up the sleeping dummy. A thoroughly confused Gajong wonders why she is being ordered to handle such a random task. Seeking to de-escalate the rising domestic drama, the peaceful Najong kindly volunteers to handle the chore herself, earning a quick word of gratitude from her lazy sister as she heads out of the kitchen. Walking down the sunny hallway towards his bedroom, Najong softly calls out his name, wondering to herself if the poor boy is simply completely wiped out from studying so intensely for his exams. Upon approaching his door, she realizes that the oblivious dummy is indeed still dead to the world. She quietly steps inside his room and approaches the bed where the clown is sleeping face down under a loose towel, thinking to herself that he should at least have the decency to wear a jacket while sleeping. She reaches out and gently shakes his back to awaken him. However, as her movement shifts the bedding, she instantly freezes in absolute, mind-boggling shock. Staring down in pure bewilderment, the completely stunned girl stands there utterly paralyzed by a sudden, sussy realization, left wondering if what she is witnessing could truly be real. Najeong is suddenly startled by a loud, aggressive pounding on the bathroom door as her younger sister Dajeong begins shouting out her name. The impatient girl demands to know what is taking so long, and questions why the door is even locked in the first place. She aggressively reminds Najeong that she was explicitly instructed to go wake up Damon so the boy could finally start preparing their morning breakfast. Najeong calmly tries to explain that the boy appeared to be sleeping incredibly deeply. However, the irritated sister snaps that she does not care at all whether he is asleep or awake, because she desperately needs to use the bathroom herself, bluntly telling Najeong to be the one to go wake him up instead. As Dajeong walks away, she bitterly grumbles to herself about the foolish boy, calling it completely ridiculous that he is just lazily lying around living it up simply because it is the weekend. The demanding girl storms directly into Damon's bedroom and loudly barks at him to wake up immediately. The oblivious monkey remains completely dead to the world, entirely unaware that his training gear has become remarkably fully charged. The highly irritated girl continues shouting his full name, ordering Jung Damon to wake up this instant and questioning if he can even hear her voice. But the moment her eyes slide down and catch sight of his highly sussy state, she lets out a loud, piercing scream of absolute shock. The dumb girl stands there entirely frozen and paralyzed, completely unable to process what on earth she is looking at. Back out in the hallway, Najeong hears her sister's sudden scream and immediately recognizes it as Dajeong's voice, wondering what could have possibly happened to cause such a loud commotion. At that moment, the eldest sister Gajeong stumbles out and casually announces that she will gladly prepare breakfast for everyone just as soon as she finishes getting changed. Najeong quietly observes her sisters, reflecting that Dajeong certainly seems to be full of energy early in the morning. Her thoughts then drift over to Gajeong, as she realizes that her eldest sibling has gone out with many partners in the past and must possess an incredible amount of cardio experience. The pure and innocent girl begins to wonder if Gajeong has engaged in cardio training before, softly questioning to herself if she could ever experience something like that in her own life. Suddenly, their mother calls out through the hallway, asking if Najeong is currently inside her room. The woman reveals that their father has finally returned home and has requested her presence immediately because he has something important to tell her. Najeong quickly calls back that she is on her way. Upon meeting up, Najeong hesitantly inquires if the driver, Ajusi, has arrived back at the estate along with her father. The mother notes that she hasn't seen the driver anywhere, curiously realizing that she has no idea why Najeong would suddenly be looking for him out of the blue. Najeong quickly backpedals, claiming she was merely asking a casual question since her father just made his return home. Shifting her focus, the mother comments that Najeong appears to be studying entirely too much lately. She gently advises her daughter that while studying is certainly a good thing, she really ought to start dating somebody. The woman points out that while being a pure woman is admirable, people simply cannot afford to be that naive in this day and age. Najeong quietly reassures her mother not to worry too much, stating that she is perfectly capable of handling her own personal life. Later that morning, the manipulative mother cheerfully calls the entire household over to the dining room to enjoy a massive breakfast feast. She puts on her classic sweet facade, calling her husband and warmly inviting him to sit down and eat while the food is hot. However, the atmosphere quickly turns incredibly heavy as the serious CEO looks across the table at his three daughters, firmly declaring that he is about to say something to them for the absolute last time. Both the mother and the clueless monkey Damon look up in complete surprise, utterly caught off guard by his sudden gravity. The father lets out a heavy, stressed sigh, while his daughters watch him anxiously. He firmly declares that even though Damon carries a completely different family name, he is strictly his true son, meaning he is a son to his wife and a proper sibling to the rest of the children. This unexpected defense instantly infuriates the spoiled Dajeong, who aggressively demands to know why her father would say such a thing completely out of the blue. She bitterly points out the realization that Damon is treated like a common servant who is expected to prepare their breakfast in the morning. Sitting quietly at the table, the terrified boy Damon tries to process the sudden chaos, nervously reflecting on how he had recently done cardio training with Ajuma and had done the exact same training with Gajong Nuna just the day before. He frantically remembers that the brat Dajong had literally just witnessed his special cardio gear earlier that morning. Looking up at the master of the house, the anxious monkey wonders why Ahusi looks so incredibly unhappy, internally panicking over the terrifying realization that he might have found out about their sussy actions. Meanwhile, the heavily stressed father quotes scripture, noting that a true friend loves at all times while a brother is specifically born for times of adversity. Sensing that an absolute disaster is brewing, the mother nervously tries to intervene, pleading with her husband to just drop the subject and eat before the food gets cold. Ignoring her entirely, the furious CEO glares directly ahead and lets out an explosive, thundering shout at his wife and Damon. He fiercely demands to know if the two of them honestly believed he was completely blind to what they had been doing behind his back. She completely freezes in absolute horror, realizing with pure terror that her husband has indeed uncovered their shocking secrets. She internally panics in total desperation, anxiously wondering what on earth she is supposed to do if she ends up getting a divorce at her current age. Right beside her, the terrified monkey Damon is having his own massive breakdown, realizing that he is completely ruined and wondering if he will end up getting kicked out of the grand estate before he even gets a chance to attend college. Feeling like he is in an immense amount of trouble, the clueless boy can only sweat nervously alongside his partner in crime. Unable to handle the intense pressure, the trembling woman desperately stammers out an apology to her husband, frantically pleading that the whole thing was nothing more than a terrible mistake. The submissive kid quickly follows her lead, desperately apologizing to Ajusi and promising that he will absolutely never do it again. However, the furious master of the house snaps at the two of them, noting that they clearly seem to understand exactly what they have done wrong. The serious CEO strictly orders Damon to stand straight up and walk over to him, before commanding his wife to step forward and face the clueless boy directly. The terrified woman whines that her husband is completely scaring her with his intense behavior, while the awkward clown Damon stands there muttering in total confusion. Looking closely at her flustered face, the easily distracted monkey suddenly realizes that her expression looks exactly like the one she made during their secret cardio training session together. This sussy realization causes the absolute dummy's heart to start racing, leading him to question why on earth he is suddenly getting fully charged in the middle of such a terrifying life-or-death situation. To everyone's absolute excitement and bewilderment, the father delivers a shocking decree, commanding that, from this exact day forward, Damon must completely stop calling her Ajuma and address her as Mom instead. He barks that the two of them need to call each other mother and son, look each other in the eye to declare their mutual feelings, and wrap each other up in a massive hug. The completely blindsided wife gasps in utter disbelief, while the older sisters look on thinking that the entire display is incredibly awkward and weird. As the confused girls openly wonder what on earth is wrong with their father, the impatient CEO loudly barks at them to hurry the hell up. Damon glances over at Dajong and notices that the hateful girl is glaring at him with pure malice yet again. Putting that aside, the awkward monkey wonders how he is ever supposed to call Ajuma his mother when it feels completely bizarre just trying to look her in the face. As the furious man shouts at them to move faster, Damon decides he has no choice but to force a completely fake smile and call out to his new mother, realizing he must simply do whatever the master commands, since there is absolutely no other alternative. Watching this theatrical display unfold, the disgusted Dajong scoffs at the absolute absurdity of the situation, calling the entire interaction completely repulsive. Damon tries to smooth things over by promising that he will behave exceptionally well from now on. Meanwhile, the serious father barks at his hesitant wife, demandingly asking what she is waiting for, and ordering her to speak up immediately. At that exact moment, an immense wave of relief washes over her, as she suddenly realizes her husband's explosive anger has absolutely nothing to do with her secret cardio training with Damon, after all. Feeling completely safe, she decides her best move is to simply comply with the orders, hesitantly stammering out that she loves her brand new son as well. The thrilled CEO completely approves of the compliance, boldly slapping a hand onto the boy's shoulder and loudly ordering the two of them to finally get together. Damon thinks to himself how remarkably aggressive and bold the master can be, before eagerly stepping forward to wrap his arms tightly around his new mother. She internally loses her absolute mind, realizing with pure horror that the reckless kid has actually managed to get completely fully charged for a cardio training session right in front of her husband. She scolds the absolute lunatic in her mind, concluding that the boy must be completely insane. Unaware of the silent chaos, the happy father loudly announces to the room that they are officially mother and son, strictly warning that if he ever catches her neglecting her son, or hears the boy using the title Ajuma again, he will be completely furious. He cheerfully commands the rest of the household to applaud the happy union, prompting a round of clapping across the room. Fuming in silence from the sidelines, the bitter Dajong resolves that the entire situation is completely mental, vowing to herself that she will absolutely never leave the simple hobo in peace. Noticing her intense glare, the smug monkey Damon smirks directly at his sister, silently asking her how it feels to watch him hold her own mother after all of her relentless hostility. He leans in and softly whispers to her, calling her mom and promising that he will make sure to train her cardio exercises plenty from now on, exactly like that unforgettable time they trained at the premium venue. Later that morning, the scene shifts to the master bedroom, where the mom checks on her husband as he prepares to head out yet again. She notes that he barely arrived home earlier that morning and wonders why on earth he is heading straight back to the workplace on the weekend. The CEO explains that there is a massive problem regarding his siblings' corporate shares, prompting the wife to realize that his greedy brothers have clearly come to cause trouble again. The man confirms he needs to personally check on something directly at the company headquarters. As she helpfully reaches down to pick up his jacket, a strange item slips out of the pocket, leaving her completely stunned as she inspects a prominent card for a local hostess bar. The suspicious lady looks at her partner and directly questions whether he actually frequents those kinds of establishments. The cornered chairman uncomfortably clears his throat, quickly claiming that he has absolutely never heard of such a venue before, and falsely suggesting that he must have accidentally accepted the card from a random street tout by mistake. He quickly tries to change the subject, letting her know that he might be a little bit late returning home today, which the wife quietly accepts. Left alone with her thoughts, the submissive woman resolves that she should simply remain completely patient, recalling her younger sister's past advice that a person cannot just go and get a divorce over a standard mistake like this anyway. Na-jeong approaches the driver outside the steps, curiously asking if he has arrived at the estate to pick up her father. She notes that her dad did not look great at all, anxiously questioning if something serious is actively happening at the company. She mentions that her uncles had come over late last night, realizing that their sudden visit is almost certainly the underlying cause of the family tension. The driver asks if she is specifically referring to Uncle Jung Shol and Uncle Jung Hoon, explaining that he will have to head directly over to the company headquarters to uncover the exact details of the situation. As he speaks, the man quietly reflects on those greedy individuals, openly wondering to himself if they truly have any right to act like the boss's actual family. Looking downcast, the emotional girl confesses that she was completely unaware of the corporate drama and was almost feeling a bit petty, admitting she was incredibly worried because the driver had failed to contact her for so long. Suddenly, the man steps closer, holding her to show sussy cardio training move. A completely flustered Na-jeong blushes deeply, softly questioning what that sudden gesture was supposed to be for. Na-jeong softly murmurs that he is completely making her confused, pointing out the realization that she is genuinely serious about their relationship while his behavior remains highly playful. Walking back up the stairs, the sweet girl finds herself deeply reflecting on what exact kind of relationship the two of them actually share. Suddenly, Damon walks up the steps and cheerfully calls out to the driver, noticing to his surprise that Na-jeong is hanging around the workspace as well. Na-jeong is visibly startled by his sudden arrival, while the curious monkey directly asks what the two of them were standing around talking about just now. The clever girl smoothly deflects the question, quickly explaining that they were merely discussing their father's company matters. The clueless boy accepts the explanation with a simple nod, prompting Na-jeong to announce that she has several university assignments to complete and needs to head indoors immediately. The oblivious clown bids her a polite farewell as she makes her exit. Left standing alone, Damon and the driver share a brief moment of complete silence as they stare out into the distance. The driver breaks the ice by asking the submissive monkey if the brat Dajong has been actively bullying or mistreating him again, even offering to personally scold the mean girl on his behalf. The boy quickly reassures him that he is completely alright, admitting that he does not really care about Dajong's annoying behavior anyway, which the driver notes is a massive relief to hear. Shifting his focus, Damon inquires if there is something seriously wrong at the company, pointing out the bizarre reality that the chairman was suddenly demanding that he and Ajuma get along out of the blue, which is completely different from how the man usually behaves. The driver ponders the situation, suggesting that the boss is likely just dealing with some intense trouble regarding his siblings' corporate shares. However, he remains optimistic, expressing his hope that everything turns out perfectly fine and confidently asserting that the boss is an incredibly strong man who will easily handle the corporate drama well. Turning his gaze back onto the boy, the observant driver remarks that Damon actually looks a little bit different compared to before. The simple monkey tries to downplay it, asserting that he is exactly the same as last time, though he privately reflects on the realization that his current life changes are incredibly hard to explain in mere words. The driver directly presses the matter, asking the clueless clown if he has secretly started going out with a girl or something. Damon reacts with sudden surprise, questioning what could have possibly made him arrive at such a conclusion. Internally, the reckless boy completely panics, wondering how on earth he could ever openly talk about his wild secret encounters with Suyeon Ajuma and Gajeong Nuna, resolving that it is best to just remain completely patient. Trying to escape the spotlight, the absolute dummy playfully promises to tell him all about it next time. The driver entirely refuses to let it go, aggressively urging the monkey to stop hiding things and spill the details already. The hesitant clown begins to crack under the pressure, starting to admit that something did indeed happen, while secretly debating in his mind whether he should just go ahead and microfilm his shocking secrets out loud. The driver is thoroughly amazed by the unexpected confession, eagerly asking the young man exactly when he first started harboring feelings for her. Thinking quickly on his feet to deflect suspicion, the clever monkey claims that it has already been about 5 years. When the driver clarifies if he is specifically talking about Najong, the boy goes completely silent before the man asks if he plans to confess his feelings the moment he successfully gets accepted into college. Damon weakly dismisses the grand idea, reflecting that such a bold move might only be possible if he were a wealthy young master from a major corporation, jokingly realizing that he would probably need to be entirely reborn to stand a real chance. The driver kindly tells him to cheer up anyway, allowing the relieved clown to quietly celebrate escaping the dangerous interrogation by using Najong as a convenient shield. Later on, the scene shifts back to his bedroom, where the clueless boy is surrounded by stacks of textbooks, letting out a massive, exhausted yawn as the heavy hours pass by. He forcefully slaps his hand down on his notebook in utter frustration, openly wondering to himself if he is simply completely dumb, since he keeps completely forgetting every single thing he just finished studying. Realizing he is in a bit of a crisis, he scratches his head just as he catches sight of his new mother, preparing to leave the estate. He awkwardly calls out to her, accidentally starting to say Ajuma, before quickly correcting himself to address her as Mom. She is completely startled by the sudden title and turns around huffily, confirming his suspicion that she is indeed on her way out to the golf driving range. However, she strictly warns the young monkey never to call her mother unless they are standing right in front of her husband, bluntly stating that she absolutely does not want to hear it otherwise. The stubborn clown casually responds that he is perfectly fine with calling her mom anyway, especially since the master explicitly ordered him to do so. Losing her temper, she snaps that he can just do whatever he wants, but as she turns to walk away, he steps right into her path and commands her to wait. She demands to know what on earth he thinks he is doing, prompting the reckless monkey to state that he wants to accompany her to the range because he is finding it entirely too difficult to focus on his studies at the moment. She aggressively tells him to let go of her, but he mockingly asks if she is truly going to reject her own son when he simply wants to spend time with her. The woman scoffs at his sheer audacity, demandingly questioning why she should ever have to go anywhere with him, but the clever dummy quickly reminds her of the severe ultimatum her husband delivered last time. He points out the harsh reality that if she fails to treat him like a proper son, the master will be completely furious with her, leaving the defeated lady with no choice but to angrily order the absolute dummy to just go get changed and follow her. The delighted boy enthusiastically agrees, happily calling her mother as she fumes over how this little servant is suddenly getting an incredibly big head. As they hit the road, the frustrated woman grumbles to herself about how incredibly annoying and distracting it is to constantly find her thoughts wandering back to the simple monkey. Her mind quickly drifts back to the mysterious business card for a venue called Sangria that had slipped out of her husband's jacket, leaving her feeling deeply disappointed and hurt since such a disgusting thing had never happened in their marriage before. She anxiously speculates whether her husband could secretly be involved with a hostess bar girl, lamenting how such a humiliating betrayal could possibly happen to a prominent housewife like her. Observing her from the driver's seat, Damon notices that she looks absolutely furious, which breaks his focus and causes the vehicle to suddenly swerve violently on the road. Terrified by the sudden movement, the woman completely loses her temper and fiercely screams at the absolute moron, asking if he wants to kill them and ordering him to drive properly because they almost suffered a massive crash. With both of their hearts pounding wildly in absolute shock, the panicked boy frantically pulls over to apologize, checking on her with intense worry to ensure that Ajuma is not actively hurt anywhere. Visibly flustered by his sudden proximity, the woman uncomfortably tells him that she is perfectly fine, strictly commanding him to take his hand off her and just focus entirely on driving properly. The submissive monkey quickly obeys. As they continue their journey, the observant lady steals a quick glance at him, silently realizing that even though the boy was likely just as terrified by the near accident, his very first instinct was to completely worry about her safety. She begins to reflect that their sussy encounter from last time only happened because she was heavily intoxicated, concluding to herself that Damon really is not a bad kid after all. She softly calls out his name, causing the confused clown to stammer out a response where he addresses her as mom before quickly trying to correct himself to Ajuma. To his absolute amazement, the woman gently reveals that he can actually just go ahead and call her mom whenever he wants, leaving him completely stunned by her sudden change of heart. Damon quickly accepts her directive, addressing her as mom. The two soon arrive at the Bumshan driving range. Stepping inside, the woman asks the staff if there happen to be any golf instructors available to assist them right now. She politely explains that her son has never played golf a single day in his life. The receptionist asks for just a brief moment to check availability. 30 minutes later, the mother is practicing her own swing but finds herself continuously sighing, realizing that her body keeps getting incredibly tense. She stops to rest, openly wondering if Damon is managing to do well with his own practice session. Meanwhile, a pretty young female instructor is guiding the lucky monkey Damon through his stance. She gasps in complete amazement, praising his incredible innate senses and wondering if this is truly his very first time playing the sport. The smirking clown gleefully confirms that it is indeed his first time ever picking up a club. The smooth-talking boy playfully remarks that his rapid progress must be entirely due to the remarkably pretty instructor teaching him. The flattered instructor giggles at his forward behavior, teasing him about how incredibly smooth his words are. She cheerfully tells him to get back into the proper stance. Watching this lively interaction unfold from a distance, the furious mother narrows her eyes in pure irritation, grumbling under her breath about those little troublemakers. Back at the practice mat, the instructor tells Damon to give it another shot, guiding him to keep moving his arm properly behind his body. The two happily connect their hands in a high five as the successful shot flies out. He proudly asks her how that particular attempt looked, and if it was all right. Observing his bright smile from afar, the jealous woman fumes silently, realizing that the foolish boy is only grinning like an idiot because his teacher happens to be so young. Unable to watch another second of it, the annoyed woman marches straight over and loudly shouts Damon's name. Startled by the sudden intrusion, the clueless monkey quickly turns around and slips up, addressing her as Ajuma before immediately catching himself calling her mom. The strict lady barks at him to stop goofing off immediately and focus entirely on his practice. She aggressively questions what on earth he thinks he is doing. The instructor politely chimes in, realizing that the arriving woman must be his mother. She enthusiastically praises his skills, reiterating that her son is exceptionally talented and asking if this is truly his first day. She warmly promises to teach him how to use a driver next time. The mother completely ignores the compliments, internally questioning what the instructor is even talking about. She strictly orders the simpleton to stop messing around and follow her out immediately. He tries to protest, pointing out that they still have a decent amount of paid time left on their session. As they stand there awkwardly, the instructor looks completely bewildered by the sudden domestic tension, while the exhausted mother lets out a heavy, frustrated sigh. The strict woman fiercely orders him not to dare talk back to her. Realizing the session is over, the polite instructor bids them a sweet farewell, prompting the simple clown to wave back and promise to see her soon. The mom grumbles bitterly to herself as she storms away, while the absolute dummy runs to catch up, desperately calling out for his mom to wait for him. Whipping around in pure rage, the woman aggressively commands him never to call her that title again. She furiously demands to know what the hell he was doing with that girl, pointing out that he wasn't even bothering to practice his golf stance. She strictly questions if he suddenly feels like a completely different person just because she chose to be nice to him earlier. Losing her absolute mind, she viciously declares that Dajong was completely right about him all along, cruelly calling him a lowlife who has been completely dirty since birth. This final, heartless insult completely shatters the boy's patience. His face turns completely cold as he suddenly springs forward, violently catching her off guard. The furious monkey corners her tightly against the wall, fiercely demanding to know what she just dared to say to him. He drops all forced respect and glares deep into her eyes, breaking the rules by directly addressing her with the forbidden title of Ajuma. Following their intense confrontation at the driving range, Damon takes off with the flustered woman trailing closely behind him. Although she asks where they are heading if he is really that angry, the stubborn boy remains tight-lipped as they arrive right outside a gym. Looking around the sketchy area, she nervously notes that the place looks exactly like the back street of a cram school, only for Damon to sharply tell her to shut up and just follow him inside. As they head towards the entrance, an immense wave of worry washes over the anxious woman as she realizes she has absolutely no idea what the reckless monkey is trying to do. Meanwhile, back at the luxurious mansion, An entirely different kind of workout is taking place as Gajong pushes her body to its absolute limits. Counting out her reps one by one, she fiercely forces herself through one final grueling set before collapsing onto the floor in pure exhaustion. Panting heavily, the tired girl reflects on how she fully expected to feel much better if she exercised really hard. Yet she is utterly baffled by why her mind keeps drifting entirely back to Damon. Letting out a heavy sigh, she decides to walk over and knock on his bedroom door to look for him, but her sweet calls are met with absolute silence. Realizing the space is completely empty, the clueless sister assumes he must have gone out to his cram school. She clutches her chest in frustration, wondering what on earth is wrong with herself, and realizing how pathetic it is to be hoping for something when her body keeps demanding cardio training at the mere thought of the oblivious boy. Back at the gym, the narrative shifts directly to room 706, where the atmosphere has become incredibly tense. Standing inside the room, the startled woman demands to know what on earth he thinks he is doing, but the bold boy merely tells her to hurry up. He steps closer and reminds her of her previous promise to calm him down, leaving the trembling lady to nervously stammer his name and protest that this is absolutely not what she meant. Taking a dominant stance, he delivers a strict ultimatum, stating that if she truly does not want to go through with it, she doesn't have to, but he will simply go ahead and tell Juicy everything. The flustered woman looks at him in complete shock, realizing that the naive kid is genuinely threatening her. While his own heart beats wildly in anticipation over whether she will actually do what he says, the cornered lady realizes she has absolutely no choice. Terrified of the family consequences, she reluctantly agrees to comply, desperately pleading with him to just ensure her husband never finds out about this secret training. Instead of reassuring her, the stubborn dummy puts on a smug front, casually responding that he isn't quite sure yet, and noting that it all depends entirely on how well she behaves from now on. This disrespectful attitude instantly infuriates the proud housewife, who demandingly asks if she looks like some kind of a joke to him. Fuming with pure irritation, she clenches her fists tightly and silently wonders if she needs to physically strike this ungrateful brat just for him to finally get his act together. However, Damon completely scoffs at her rising anger, calmly pointing out that she does not even possess the physical strength to pull off such a thing. With a confident smirk, the arrogant monkey asserts that she is far too weak to face him, leaving the completely shocked woman utterly paralyzed. Before she can even process his bold words, her eyes widen in pure horror as the reckless boy suddenly starts training her rough cardio exercises. The scene shifts away from the dramatic gym confrontation and over to the brightly lit city skyline, where the corporate buildings tower into the evening sky. Inside one of the high-rise offices, Chairman Kim Jungmin is working late into the night, typing away and focusing entirely on his duties. Sitting heavily in his chair, the stressed executive stares intensely at the fluctuating stock charts on his computer screen as the massive weight of the family business rests squarely on his shoulders. The absolute silence of the room is suddenly shattered when his smartphone loudly alerts him to an incoming message, vibrating right on the desk next to his official nameplate. Picking up the device, Jungmin finds a highly irritating text from his greedy older brother inquiring how he is currently doing. The rowdy brother mockingly notes that the chairman must be incredibly bored while working so hard late at night, before cheerfully promising to send him something fun to enjoy. Attached to the message is a highly sussy photograph showcasing a sussy lounge encounter. Staring blankly at the screen, Jungman's face darkens as he instantly realizes that this absolute monkey of a brother is definitely after his money and trying to leverage the photo to secure corporate shares. Unable to contain his explosive rage at the blatant manipulation, the furious chairman curses under his breath and violently slams his fist down onto the desk in absolute frustration. After letting his initial anger settle for a brief moment, the exhausted man tries to calm his racing mind and picks his phone back up to look at the screen. His severe expression softly starts to fade as he opens up a completely different photograph, revealing a picture of his beautiful wife looking remarkably elegant and smiling radiantly back at him. Staring closely at his partner's face, the deeply troubled husband quietly reflects on his marriage. Back at the mansion, Gajong notices that Damon is not even bothering to check her text messages, leaving her deeply debating whether she should actually call his phone or just leave it alone. This confused sister quickly realizes that the oblivious boy will probably just ignore her anyway, making her wonder why he is refusing to come back home. Despite her hesitations, she decides to just go ahead and make the call. She stares intensely at her phone with Damon's contact pulled up, trembling with pure anxiety as she wavers back and forth on what to do. Suddenly, her phone goes off with a loud notification that completely catches her off guard. Looking down, she realizes the text message is actually from her ex-partner Kang Minho, who is asking if she is currently asleep and confessing that he misses her. Gajong is left completely irritated by his sudden message, wondering what on earth this bastard is trying to pull after all this time. Meanwhile, the narrative shifts to the youngest sister Dajong as she walks through the front door and cheerfully announces her return to her mother. Instead of her mom, she spots her older sister Najeong and is completely stunned to see her wearing a skirt, noting that she has not seen her dress like that in years. This suspicious girl immediately asks if Najeong is heading out on a secret outing, but her sister remains highly evasive and simply claims she is just heading out somewhere. Dajong presses further, asking if the driver Hyunsung was the one who called her. Najeong quickly denies the accusation, insisting that it is absolutely nothing like that. Remembering the past, Dajong points out that her sibling had explicitly asked to be stopped in situations just like this, earnestly checking to see if she is truly doing all right. Najeong casually brushes off the concern as something from years ago, before strictly instructing the simple girl to just tell their mother that she went out to a high school reunion. Dajong relents and tells her to go ahead and have fun. As Najeong walks away, the clueless girl reflects on how her sister always managed to stay overnight whenever she wore an outfit like that. This simple monkey begins to wonder if it is truly possible to engage in cardio training with someone you are not even actively going out with, realizing there are still so many sussy concepts she does not fully comprehend. She reflects on how past partners sometimes transition into training with benefits, defining it as a relationship focused purely on cardio training while completely ignoring any personal feelings. The confused girl then starts to wonder if maybe Damon wanted a similar arrangement, ultimately concluding that the entire situation is far too complicated to figure out. Elsewhere, Damon and his new mother are finally pulling up to their destination, where the woman politely thanks the boy for the ride. Before she can escape the vehicle, the bold monkey strictly tells her to wait. He suddenly catches her in a tight grip and confidently tells his new mother that she possesses remarkably proper legs. The completely flustered lady gasps in surprise, asking what on earth he is trying to say. Damon merely smiles and asks if she has already completely forgotten what the two of them were actively training just a short while ago. He reassures her that just like he promised before, he has absolutely no intention of mentioning their secret gym trip at home. The cornered mother lets out a defeated sigh and accepts his words. She calmly suggests that they finally head inside the house. Damon happily agrees. Stepping through the entryway of the luxurious mansion, the mother loudly announces her arrival to the rest of the household. Looking around the completely silent hallway, she realizes that the others must not have returned home yet. Seizing the perfect opportunity, the reckless dummy immediately springs into action and tries to start a cardio session. The startled woman completely panics and aggressively demands to know what he thinks he is doing, but the bold clown tells her to relax since absolutely no one else is around to see them anyway. However, the mother refuses to be trained and firmly pushes him away, strictly pointing out that he had explicitly promised her he would never attempt to train her like this inside the family home, forcing the submissive boy to reluctantly accept her demands. But before they can even separate properly, one of the sisters suddenly steps out into the hallway and calls out their titles in pure bewilderment. Both of them are caught completely off guard as the arriving sister stares directly at them, bluntly demanding to know what on earth the two of them are doing together. The unexpected hallway confrontation comes to a grinding halt as Najeong suddenly steps into view and gasps out in pure bewilderment upon spotting them together. Looking incredibly awkward, the flustered mother quickly covers her mouth and stammers her daughter's name, nervously noting that it is getting exceptionally late before inquiring where on earth she has been all this time. Desperate to cover up her tracks, the mom forces a fake laugh and quickly claims that she merely went out to play a standard round of golf alongside Damon. Attempting to effortlessly deflect the spotlight, she smoothly turns the tables by asking Najeong what she was doing wandering around the house herself. Najeong calmly explains that she simply came out of her bedroom to fetch a quick glass of water, prompting the anxious mother to frantically change the subject by checking if both Gajeong and Dajeong are safely asleep in their rooms. The doctor-to-be patiently reveals that Gajeong actually went out to attend a high school reunion, while the bratty Dajeong mentioned she would be returning home a bit late. Relieved that the coast is temporarily clear, the shattered lady announces that she is going to head straight to bed, wishing her daughter a peaceful night, which the girl politely returns. However, the moment her mother walks away, Najeong's face turns completely serious as she senses something is deeply wrong. She quietly reflects on the bizarre situation and realizes that Damon's behavior was incredibly off, leaving her fully convinced that something sussy must have happened to her mother out there. She recalls how the awkward boy had frantically tried to justify his presence by stammering about how Ajusi explicitly ordered them to stay close, using that as his sole excuse for why they went golfing together. Yet, the intuitive girl cannot shake the feeling that the simple monkey was being entirely unnatural. looking exactly like a guilty clown who had just been caught red-handed doing something terrible behind everyone's back. Meanwhile, far away from the mansion under the pitch-black evening sky, an increasingly irritated Gajong is pacing around a corporate building, anxiously wondering where on earth her ex-partner is hiding. Staring aggressively at her phone, she grumbles to herself that this total idiot needs to just pick up the call already, only to be repeatedly met with an automated voicemail stating that the user cannot come to the phone and requesting a message after the tone. Letting out a heavy, depressed sigh, the tired girl notes how much this annoying bastard is actively ruining her mood. She pulls up her chat application to inspect her last text message to Kang Minho, where she had announced her arrival and questioned his exact whereabouts. She bitterly reflects on her own foolishness, realizing she actually expected this clown to have changed at least a little bit during his time away. Clutching her head in frustration, she mutters that she doesn't even feel like returning to her family home anymore, letting out another exhausted breath as she wanders the dark streets in pure annoyance. Suddenly, a loud shout echoes through the night as Minho unexpectedly calls out her name, aggressively running up from behind while boisterously proclaiming how intensely he has missed her. Instead of feeling touched, Gajong instantly scolds herself for having such pathetic expectations, mentally calling the entire interaction complete bullshit and wondering what on earth she was thinking. She uncomfortably shifts her stance, grumbling about how brutally her feet are hurting and deeply questioning why she even agreed to step outside to see him in the first place. Walking along the dimly lit path, she resolves that she absolutely shouldn't have anticipated anything good from this relationship. As she stops to inspect her surroundings, she suddenly registers that this specific park is the exact venue where the two of them had shared their very first training moments years ago. Staring at the familiar scenery, she softly realizes that she genuinely misses those simpler days. But just as she is lost in her deep nostalgia, a large hand suddenly clamps down violently onto her shoulder, catching the easily distracted girl completely off guard. Terrified by the sudden touch, she lets out a piercing scream and instinctively unleashes a powerful punch straight into the dark, only to let out a gasp of pure horror upon realizing that the intruder she just violently struck in the face is actually Minho. Panicking over her own mistake, she inspects his injured nose and frantically checks to see if he is actively all right. A short while later, the two of them sit down on a park bench to recover, where Minho hands over a cold can of beer, which she uncomfortably accepts with a brief word of thanks. Taking a long gulp, Minho attempts to break the heavy silence by inquiring about what she has been up to during his long absence. Gajeong downplays her life by stating nothing much has really happened, before bluntly suggesting that they should just stop talking and focus entirely on drinking their alcohol. Minho suddenly drops his playful front and earnestly confesses that he sincerely missed her so much, anxiously questioning why she failed to visit him even a single time while he was away. He whines that her complete radio silence made him feel incredibly sad and neglected. Hearing this absurd claim, the furious girl grips her beer can with an agonizingly tight hold, trembling with pure rage as she reminds this manipulative clown that he was the one who explicitly dumped her by stating he was going into the military service to break things off. Minho nonchalantly smiles and tries to brush off the drama, casually reasoning that entering the service shouldn't automatically mean they have to end their connection. He audaciously grumbles about how intensely rough the entire experience was on him, prompting the disgusted girl to look away and realize that he is nothing but a smooth-talking liar. Refusing to back down, the bold boy holds her hand and shifts back to his classic sleazy demeanor, leaning in to note how long it has been since they last spent time together, before asking if she wants to have cardio exercise training with him right then and there. Gajong flushes an embarrassed color and nervously objects, pointing out the dangerous reality that someone might notice their training in the open. The stubborn boy confidently dismisses her anxiety, smoothly reminding her that absolutely nobody is going to find out since they have successfully pulled off the exact same training in the past. Gajeong's heart begins to race wildly as a sudden, definitive realization hits her like a truck. She fully recognizes that her complete lack of interest in cardio training is entirely because of Damon, realizing to her absolute shock that her mind is completely locked on to the simple monkey instead. Reflecting on his recent activities, Damon notes how exceptionally well things have been going lately, leading this foolish monkey to realize exactly why people enjoy cardio training so much. Confident after successfully training Ajuma, the arrogant boy begins to contemplate whether he could pull off the same feat with Najeong, though he is slightly uncertain if he is truly capable of such a bold move. Although he feels incredibly tired, he finds himself entirely unable to predict what an encounter with her would even be like. He assumes that the pure girl has likely never engaged in any cardio training before, leaving him to wonder if he might actually end up being the very first person to train her. Simply letting his thoughts wander over to her, the smirking clown debates whether he should send a quick text message to verify if she is currently asleep. However, as he opens up his phone, he is surprised to find that Gajong had actually tried calling him a bunch of times the previous night. He immediately wonders if this older sister might actually be a much easier target than he originally anticipated. Deciding that he can easily handle Najeong at a later time, the lazy boy lets out a massive yawn and resolves to focus on a little bit of studying the following day. The next morning brings beautiful weather, making the unmotivated student grumble about how much he genuinely dislikes going to his cram school. His thoughts are interrupted when he runs directly into an exhausted Gajong, who looks completely wiped out as she makes her way back. Spotting him, she mutters his name as the observant boy directly questions if she ended up staying out overnight. Noting her appearance, Damon playfully points out that she is wearing a skirt and openly wonders if she went out to meet some guy. Gajong is internally annoyed by his sudden interrogation, recalling how this simple monkey completely failed to answer her numerous calls the day before, leaving her wondering why he is suddenly acting so intensely concerned about her business. She awkwardly explains that she merely attended a school reunion, while secretly scolding herself for feeling a strange need to provide this dumb kid with an excuse in the first place. Damon casually reminds her about her frequent missed calls and directly asks what managed to happen. Gajong bluntly fires back that it was absolutely nothing, and strictly orders him to get out of her way. The cheeky boy refuses to budge, playfully asking if she missed him before confidently offering to provide her with another deep massage session today. Finding his forward attitude entirely too much to handle, the irritated sister pushes past him and strictly tells him to cut it out because he is being far too cheeky. The smug boy merely smiles and asks if she is truly certain about her choice or if she will end up regretting it later. Gajong firmly states that she is perfectly fine, proudly declaring that she already has a partner and explicitly vowing that she will absolutely never engage in those kinds of actions with him again. Accepting her answer with a casual shrug, the bold monkey mockingly notes that if things ever fail to work out with her partner, she is always completely free to swing by his bedroom. This final taunt pushes her over the edge, causing her to fiercely shout at him to shut up. Later that evening, Damon is back in his room complaining that his head feels like it is about to explode after forcing himself to study for such a long period. Completely wiped out and feeling immense stress, the absolute dummy collapses face down onto his bed to finally get some rest. His quiet relaxation is interrupted when his phone loudly goes off with a notification. The bold boy texts his new mother, directly stating that he wants to see her and asking if she can come over to his room. The terrified woman immediately fires back a furious text, asking if he has completely lost his mind and strictly reminding the reckless monkey that Ajusi is actively present in the house. Damon casually dismisses her panic, playfully suggesting that she can easily just slide out of the master bedroom the exact moment her husband falls fast asleep. Unwilling to risk the danger, the anxious lady texts back aggressively, telling him to completely forget about it and to not even dream of such a thing. At that exact moment, the corporate master of the house calls out to his wife, requesting that she bring him a fresh towel. She quickly complies while internally reflecting on the distant nature of her marriage. Realizing that she and her husband have not done cardio training in an exceptionally long time, the frustrated woman firmly resolves that she is going to have proper training with her husband tonight. The chairman impatiently calls out for the towel a second time, instantly snapping the distracted lady out of her deep daze as she frantically apologizes and hands over the fabric. Approaching her husband with a sweet front, she gently asks if he has been doing all right lately. The confused man wonders what she is up to. In her thoughts, the guilty woman quietly confesses that she ended up with Damon again, offering a desperate silent apology to her partner. Viewing her husband as a genuinely great person, she begs him to train her in rough cardio exercises so that she can finally purge the thought of Damon from her mind once and for all. She tries to reassure herself by reflecting on how her husband is remarkably competent and exceptionally loyal to the family. However, as the two attempt to engage in a cardio session, the submissive woman is suddenly struck by a highly disappointing and brutal reality. She realizes that her husband's training feels entirely easy compared to her vivid training memories of the young monkey, leaving her completely frozen as her mind conjures up a highly sussy vision. Later, she went to Damon's room for another cardio session, but they were noticed by the sister. She wonders what on earth they are doing and can't believe her eyes. The next afternoon, Damon finishes up his classes at the Specialized College Exam Academy, where motivational signs urge students to cheer up since there are only a few months left until the main event. Bidding a polite farewell to the facility, the exhausted student walks down the sunny street past a local bakery, letting out a heavy breath of relief that his studies are finally done for the day. He decides to stop by a venue called Café Velour to clear his stressed mind. Stepping right through the open door, as the establishment greets its incoming guests. Looking over the extensive menu, the thirsty boy decides to order a simple iced Americano to cool himself down, quickly offering his thanks as the server hands over the freshly prepared coffee. Taking a long sip of his drink, Damon begins to reflect on the bizarre sound he heard the previous night, fully realizing that it felt exactly as if someone was secretly watching his cardio training with Ajuma. Although he had initially brushed the weird incident aside to ensure his good mood wasn't completely ruined, he notes to himself that the underlying feeling was still remarkably uncomfortable. His deep train of thought is shattered instantly when a pink luxury bag slams directly into his head with a loud smack, leaving the startled boy to look up in surprise as he realizes a girl has just hit him. Looking closer at her features, the clueless monkey finds her appearance incredibly familiar, while the girl completely ignores his presence and walks straight up to the counter to place her order. The arriving girl requests one frappuccino alongside an iced latte, before telling her companion that she will go ahead and secure their seats. Recognizing his highly aggressive younger sister Dajong, the terrified boy lowers his head and desperately hopes that she will just pass right by his table without noticing him. Dajong steals a quick glance around the room, strictly instructing her friend to bring the beverages over at the exact moment the staff finishes preparing them. Damon lets out a massive sigh of relief as he assumes they have safely moved away, while the clueless girl looks around the crowded space, actively wondering where she ought to sit down. Dajong struts directly over to his table in her bright skirt, leaving the absolute dummy to internally curse his terrible luck as she glares down at him with pure malice. The hostile girl questions why on earth he is present at this establishment, prompting the cornered monkey to nervously stammer that he merely came out to relax. Damon bitterly reflects on how incredibly annoying it is that he always completely loses his nerve whenever he encounters this terrifying girl. Dajong aggressively clicks her tongue and reminds him that she had explicitly commanded him never to step foot inside this particular cafe. Growing even more irritated by his quiet presence, she asks if she looks like a total fool to him, just because their father has been acting remarkably nice to him lately. Right on cue, her arrogant friend arrives at the table holding the coffee, happily announcing that the order was completed much faster than she originally anticipated. The friend notices Damon sitting there and curiously inquires if he is the specific guy who leeched off her family's household. Dajong proudly confirms the suspicion, complaining that the total loser boldly came to this cafe even though she had strictly warned him against it. The toxic friend scoffs in amusement, commenting on how incredibly weird he truly is, which leaves the frustrated boy to reflect on how her friend behaves exactly like her. Damon wonders to himself why she constantly insists on treating him like nothing more than a common parasite, but Dajong aggressively demands to know if he can hear her voice before rudely shoving him to move out of the way. Her companion chimes in with her own mocking tone, asking if he is completely deaf before strictly ordering him to get out, because those are their seats. Dajong points at him as prime evidence of his weird behavior, while her friend completely agrees, labeling him a shameless loser whose entire existence consists of wasting money. Giving him another hostile nudge, Dajong loudly draws attention to how he shamelessly spends her parents' hard-earned money without a single shred of awareness or understanding of what he is doing. The friend mockingly asks if this absolute dummy is really planning to stay there, pushing him to finally give up his seat and move out of the way. As he stands up, he bitterly reflects on what a miserable person she is, while Dajong lets out a mocking laugh, sneering that if he finds this situation so intensely unfair, he should just try actually getting accepted into a college for once. The satisfied friend notes that he is finally getting out of their way, though she grumbles about why on earth the total loser took so long just to move. Damon packs up his things and walks away, silently resolving that she can say whatever she wants because he doesn't give a single care about her toxic words. Behind him, the arrogant friend wonders what is wrong with him and complains about how long it took just to sit down at the table. Dajong fully agrees, laying all the blame squarely on that shameless bastard. Sitting outside Café Velour, the malicious girl cruelly declares that his entire existence is completely disgusting, mockingly speculating that his terrible behavior is probably because both of his real parents are dead. Noticing his leftover drink on the table, the irritated girl loudly demands that he stop walking away and take his trash with him. She aggressively rants that she shouldn't have to tell him to handle basic tasks, cruelly mocking that his lack of basic awareness is exactly why he is forced to repeat his entrance exams. She shudders in disgust, claiming that merely being in the same room as him gives her literal goosebumps, before fiercely ordering him to take his garbage and get the hell out. Her amused friend giggles, mockingly noting that the simpleton looks completely terrified of her. Walking away into the sunny afternoon, Damon's face turns completely dark as an intense rage boils within him. Clenching his fists, he strictly vows to himself that he is going to make Dajong deeply regret her heartless actions. He starts to wonder if she would still be capable of smiling so radiantly if she were forced to watch her own mother engaged in cardio training. He proudly resolves that even if the cruel girl begs him to stop down the road, he absolutely will not listen, firmly vowing to turn her into his personal cardio exercise student just like he did to her mother. Late that evening, a car pulls up outside a large residential building, while Na sits quietly inside her room, typing away on her laptop as she works diligently alongside a stack of books. Her focused study session is interrupted when a familiar voice calls out her name, prompting the young student to look up and address him as Ahusi. She realizes how early he has managed to arrive and directly questions his timing, completely unaware that this helpful man hurried over to deliver a brand new set of exam workbooks straight to her desk the very moment he finished his workday. After offering her brief thanks, Na listens as he curiously inquires why she is forcing herself to study so intensely while she is supposed to be on a relaxing academic break. The stressed girl admits that she was simply getting heavily distracted by some random thoughts, revealing that it had become a little too uncomfortable for her to stay at the family mansion lately. Ahusi grows visibly concerned and immediately presses to know what she means by that statement and what exactly happened at home. Na hesitates, weakly trying to claim that she was merely feeling stressed out because of her impending university studies, before shifting her focus to bring up Damon's name. The curious man wonders what could possibly be up with the boy, leading him to directly ask if the simple monkey had boldly tried to ask her out on an outing, since they had previously discussed her in private. Na internally scoffs at the suggestion, fully realizing there is absolutely no way Damon likes her in a sussy way. However, Ajusi notes that the boy truly appeared to hold an immense amount of likeness for her. This observation makes the quiet girl reflect on the sussy reality of the situation, knowing that he actually likes someone else entirely, a person she cannot possibly bring herself to mention out loud to him. She harbors the heavy, secret realization that Damon actually likes her own stepmom, but she keeps it to herself as Ajusi gently pats her head and reassures her that she doesn't have to speak up if the subject is too difficult to articulate. Feeling his comforting touch, her heart begins to race wildly as she reflects on how incredibly nice and considerate this man always is to her. She realizes he possesses a wonderful talent for making her feel perfectly safe and at ease. As she feels the warmth of his hand, she completely casts aside any lingering worries about Damon's feelings, concluding that she simply wants to focus entirely on making herself feel good. She notes to herself that her mother, her sisters, and that dumb monkey Damon always do exactly whatever they want in life anyway, so she reasons that she is well within her rights to do what she wants as well. Shyly calling out his title, the bold girl desperately begs him not to leave, pleading with him to stay by her side as the completely blindsided man reacts in total confusion. Suddenly, a voice inquires what exactly managed to change her mind, as the narrative shifts over to a bustling department store where Gajiong is happily enjoying a vibrant shopping trip alongside her mother. The mother chuckles and points out a humorous contradiction, reminding her daughter that she used to constantly lecture her to put an end to her endless shopping sprees. Gajiong playfully acts surprised and asks when she ever said such a thing, before clarifying that she only complained because her mother stubbornly insisted on continuously buying the exact same style of yoga outfits every single time. Intrigued by the critique, the woman asks if that is really true, prompting her daughter to enthusiastically advise her to step out of her comfort zone and purchase something entirely unique for once. The mother happily agrees to the plan, and Gajiong quickly picks out an item to try on inside the fitting room while her mother patiently waits outside. As she stands by the changing stall, the mother reflects on her recent secret encounters, anxiously realizing that she tends to look a little bit too old whenever she is standing right next to the young monkey Damon. Seeking a way to look refreshed and youthful, she resolves that she should start using Gajiong's trendy style as a direct reference for her own wardrobe. Right on cue, Gajiong proudly steps out of the fitting room wearing a highly proper black dress and confidently asks how she looks. She point-blank notes that the sheer fabric leaves her jacket completely proper for everyone to see. The absolutely horrified mother instantly panics, frantically ordering her daughter to take it off and choose something completely different. Gajiong dismisses her mother's wild overreaction, clarifying that this specific piece is strictly meant to be worn during exercise for her partner rather than out on the public streets, proudly adding that Minho is a massive fan of outfits exactly like this. The surprised woman notes that she didn't realize they were actively going out again, warmly commenting that it is nice to hear, which prompts a playful threat from her daughter, who jokingly asks if her mother wants to get hit. Shifting the spotlight, Gajiong urges her mother to go ahead and try on an outfit of her own, leaving the self-conscious lady to hesitantly wonder if she should actually give it a shot. Stepping inside the changing stall, the nervous woman admits to herself that the situation is incredibly embarrassing, since she has absolutely never worn such a jacket in her entire life. Gajong eagerly calls through the door for her mother to finally come out so she can inspect the look, forcing the flustered housewife to slowly step into view while nervously worrying aloud that the outfit is far too big. Stepping out of the fitting room, the mother reveals her new pink jacket, prompting a wave of absolute amazement from her oldest daughter. Gajiong enthusiastically praises her mother's striking appearance, loudly pointing out that the jacket looks exceptionally good on her and marveling at her impressive frame, before casually declaring that she looks exactly like a prominent Western model. Staring at her own reflection, the self-conscious woman quietly reflects on her look, confidently realizing that her husband Jungman will absolutely love the presentation. At the same time, her sneaky mind drafts a secret resolution to purchase the jacket specifically to show it off to the young monkey Damon later on. Observing from a short distance, Gajong notes that, while she harbored a bit of uncertainty from afar, her mother looks genuinely spectacular up close. The peaceful shopping trip is shattered instantly when an unexpected voice echoes nearby, inquiring if the two women are indeed Gajiong and his sister-in-law Suyun. To her absolute horror and bewilderment, the mother turns around to find her husband's greedy brothers standing right there, realizing that the chaotic duo has caught them completely off guard. The boisterous uncles observe that the ladies appear to be out enjoying a lively day at the department store, with one of them stepping forward to cheerfully ask how they have been doing lately. The flustered woman internally panics, desperately wondering why these terrible individuals had to show up at such an incredibly inconvenient moment. Loudly laughing at the sheer coincidence, the rowdy uncle boisterously proclaims that it is an absolute pleasure to cross paths with them out in public. Turning his sharp gaze toward the silent daughter, the demanding man strictly scolds Gajiong for failing to even offer a proper greeting to her elders, leaving the deeply uncomfortable girl with no choice but to timidly mutter a hesitant hello. The uncle casually acknowledges her response, commenting that she has certainly grown quite a lot since they last crossed paths. Shifting his focus entirely back onto the mother, the smooth-talking uncle begins showering her with relentless praise, confidently asserting that she looks just as remarkably beautiful as always. He loudly claims that she never seems to age a single day, mockingly comparing her to a fresh young lady, as the flustered woman reluctantly offers a polite word of thanks. Unbothered by her visible discomfort, the sleazy monkey turns to his brother and quietly confesses his deep envy toward Jungman. The other rowdy brother bursts out into hysterical laughter, boldly declaring that if he were in Jungman's shoes, he absolutely wouldn't have stopped at just 3. Overhearing their deeply unpleasant banter, a thoroughly disgusted Gajong inches closer and quietly urges her mother to leave this area and head somewhere else immediately. The protective mother instantly recognizes the danger and realizes she cannot allow her eldest daughter to face further harassment, firmly resolving that her absolute top priority is to get Gajong safely out of this terrible encounter first. She quietly tells her daughter to go ahead and leave, promising that she will follow closely behind her in just a short moment. Attempting to smoothly orchestrate a quick escape, the clever woman politely explains to the group that Gajiong needs to head out immediately because she is scheduled to meet up with her friends very soon. However, the stubborn uncles completely block their path, aggressively demanding to know why on earth the two of them are in such a massive hurry. They strictly order the women to stay put for a little while longer, confidently stating that they cannot possibly allow them to just walk away so easily. Seeking a convenient excuse to prolong the interaction, the manipulative men boldly announce that they are going to purchase some new clothes for Gajiong as an unexpected present. Browsing through the racks, the rowdy uncle notes that black looks exceptionally good on her, before pulling out a jacket and strictly ordering the reluctant girl to head inside the fitting room to try it on. He casually tells her not to feel any pressure since it is merely a simple gift, while persistently forcing the jacket into her hands. Gajiong finds herself completely trapped by their relentless stubbornness, anxiously wondering what on earth she is supposed to do to escape this nightmare. The worried mother tries her best to intervene, politely stammering that they really don't need to go through all this trouble for them. But the aggressive uncle completely dismisses her protests and firmly commands the girl to just go ahead and try it on anyway. The sleazy brothers loudly defend their behavior, confidently reasoning that they are merely trying to be nice and pointing out that they aren't asking her to do anything weird or sussy. Witnessing the women's continuous reluctance, the irritated monkeys quickly lose their temper and mockingly declare that they should just forget the entire matter since their pure intentions of showing kindness are being completely unappreciated. Dropping their fake pleasant facade entirely, the malicious brothers pivot to a highly dangerous blackmail tactic, casually suggesting to one another that they should just go ahead and report this interaction directly to Chairman Jungman. They mockingly note that they will ensure the chairman hears all about how disrespectfully his wife and daughter chose to treat them at the department store, Hearing this terrifying threat, the mother completely freezes in absolute panic as a wave of pure terror washes over her. She internally loses her mind, fully realizing that she absolutely cannot allow her husband to get involved in this volatile situation under any circumstances. Desperate to halt their movements before they can cause an absolute catastrophe for her household, the frantic woman frantically cries out for them to wait. Inside the department store changing room, a highly reluctant Soo-yeon is stuck fuming in silence, completely unable to believe that those greedy uncles are actually forcing her to wear such a jacket. Outside the stall, the impatient men loudly demand to know what is taking her so long, ordering her to hurry up and step outside if she is finally finished changing. Left with no alternative, Soo-yeon mutters that she is coming, before slowly opening the door to reveal her new look. Soo-yeon absolutely detests every single second of the experience, feeling intensely embarrassed and fully realizing that this jacket is entirely too much for her to handle. Meanwhile, the rowdy monkeys waiting outside are absolutely thrilled by the presentation, loudly cheering at how spectacular she looks. One brother happily praises the display, congratulating his sibling on choosing such an excellent dress, which prompts the other bold clown to boast that he has plenty of other tricks up his sleeve. The crude uncle even makes a tasteless comment about his own rising excitement from the view, causing his brother to burst into laughter over how completely incorrigible he always manages to be. Soo-yeon feels literal goosebumps from the sheer creepiness of the interaction, anxiously realizing that the entire situation is turning out remarkably bad. The demanding man then strictly instructs her to turn around so they can check out the back, leaving the poor girl to reluctantly comply while silently wondering how much longer she will be forced to stand there in front of them. The uncles marvel at the fit, noting that the jacket appears to be the perfect size, but one of them suddenly senses that something crucial is missing from the overall look, telling her to wait right there. A thoroughly confused Soo-yeon wonders what on earth he is trying to pull as his hand suddenly reaches out and fixes her hair. He confidently asserts that she looks significantly younger with her hair down. He delivers a strict recommendation that she should always let her hair down whenever she chooses to wear a jacket like that in the future. Ga-jeong can only let out a heavy, miserable breath, intensely hating the encounter and desperately wishing to know when this annoying man will finally stop bothering her. The creepy uncle barks at his brother to stop standing around like a useless dummy and start taking some photos of the view. The other brother happily agrees, telling her to look directly over here while he prepares to snap some pictures for her. Soo-yeon is driven to the absolute brink of tears, completely losing her patience as she silently laments how profoundly she hates this entire experience. The narrative then transitions completely away from the department store drama and over to a quiet bedroom later that night, where a laptop sits open on the desk under the dim evening light. Inside the peaceful room, a highly cardio encounter unfolds, as Na-jeong and Ajusi find themselves locked in a cardio training session. Later, Ajusi abruptly informs Na-jeong that he needs to leave immediately because his boss is actively calling for his assistance. Although the disappointed girl handles the sudden departure by asking if he truly has to go right away, the man offers a brief apology and promises to see her next time before making his quick exit. Na-jeong reluctantly accepts the situation, watching the door close while softly reflecting on the sad reality that there are still so many trainings she genuinely wants to experience alongside him. Meanwhile, the narrative shifts over to the exact venue listed on the mysterious business card her husband had dropped earlier, a local hostess bar called Sangria. Inside the loud establishment, the mother finds herself trapped at a table where the rowdy uncles enthusiastically urge her to have a drink, boisterously pointing out how incredibly expensive the alcohol is. The deeply uncomfortable woman laments how intensely disappointing they are, firmly resolving to herself that she will just quickly finish this single drink and make her escape from the premises immediately. Unbothered by her obvious misery, the greedy monkeys continue their rowdy behavior, turning their attention to another woman nearby and making crude remarks about her prominent assets. The tense atmosphere shatters completely when Chairman Jungman suddenly bursts through the entrance, violently slamming things around as he fiercely demands to know what on earth they think they are doing. The protective husband rushes over to his tearful wife, anxiously checking to see if she is entirely all right. Jungman reassures his trembling partner not to worry, because he already fully comprehends exactly what transpired, calmly instructing her that they should just head straight back home, a command which the relieved woman quietly nods to accept. However, before the couple can successfully escape the venue, the malicious brothers step forward to deliver a severe threat to the chairman, mockingly reminding Jungman that he doesn't have much time left at the company. The bold clowns confidently state that while they will remain silent for today because they hold the highly compromising evidence, they absolutely will not gloss over the matter the next time they meet. Jungman firmly orders them to put an end to the absolute nonsense, but they merely let out a smug corporate chuckle as the couple walks away. Later that evening, an assistant guides the chairman outside the Grand City Lights right next to the W Hotel, politely announcing their arrival and letting his boss know they are ready to move. Jungman looks profoundly stressed and exhausted, tightly gripping his stance as he quietly reflects on the grim reality, completely consumed by anxiety over what on earth he is supposed to do next to handle his family's endless blackmail. Back at the luxurious mansion, the serious chairman calls out for Damon to step inside his office. The polite boy enters the room and greets him, but the master of the house kindly tells the simpleton to just relax and stay seated without standing up on his account. Jungman opens the conversation by inquiring how his daily life and studies have been going recently. Damon casually responds that things are going reasonably well, while calmly checking to see if there is a specific matter his guardian wishes to discuss. The chairman notes that he recently observed the boy having a lot of fun alongside his mother and sisters, causing the startled monkey to instantly flinch in pure terror as he wonders what exact definition of fun the man is referring to. Jungman clarifies that he simply heard about their recent golf outing, allowing the relieved student to quickly explain that he only went because he was feeling entirely too wiped out from his relentless studies. Damon quietly reflects on what an incredibly nice and wonderful person Ajusi truly is, which instantly triggers an immense wave of guilt within his mind as he realizes how terribly his cardio encounters with Ajuma and Nuna betray the man's immense trust. Unaware of the internal panic, the emotional father states that Damon ought to understand exactly how profoundly he loves his wife and his 3 daughters. The chairman then delivers a shocking and life-altering directive, scratching his head as he solemnly asks the oblivious dummy to step up and completely take care of the family if anything terrible ever happens to him. While the bold boy readily accepts the massive responsibility in his mind for everyone except the bratty Dajong, the completely blindsided clown is left utterly paralyzed with confusion, desperately trying to comprehend why on earth his guardian would deliver such an ominous and final ultimatum right now. Damon stands there feeling utterly restless and tilting his head in pure confusion as he contemplates his guardian's ominous words. He cannot help but ask Ajusi why on earth he would randomly bring up such a strange request, anxiously trying to realize if some kind of serious household trouble is actively brewing behind the scenes. Ajusi simply shakes his head to dismiss the boy's rising anxieties, reassuring him that it is absolutely nothing important and that he really does not need to stress himself out over the matter. Damon quietly accepts the response, though he still cannot shake off a lingering wave of deep worry about what the future holds. Later that night, the simple boy finds himself reflecting deeply on his current circumstances as the reality of his double life weighs on his mind. He realizes to himself that ever since both Ajuma and Ajusi started acting remarkably kind and supportive toward him, he really shouldn't be engaging in any sussy behavior under their roof. Yet, whenever the woman boldly comes on to him like that, this weak-willed monkey simply cannot find the strength to resist training her cardio exercises, leaving him to helplessly indulge in another session with her despite his mounting guilt. Meanwhile, an entirely different kind of frustration is breaking out across the hallway as Gajong sits completely irritated while staring intensely at her phone screen. Listening to the repetitive automated voicemail stating that the person she called is currently unable to answer, the thoroughly annoyed girl grumbles to herself about how incredibly unhelpful her partner is being. She aggressively clicks her tongue and fumes over why on earth this bastard is completely refusing to answer her calls yet again, anxiously reflecting on the highly annoying possibility that he might secretly be out picking up other girls behind her back. Letting out a heavy, exhausted sigh, the restless girl notes that she isn't feeling even a little bit tired tonight, leading her to debate whether she should just stay up to watch a random movie or find something else to occupy her time. Suddenly, a highly interesting realization strikes her mind as she begins to wonder if it would be much better to just head straight over to Damon's room instead. Making her final decision, the slightly tipsy sister carefully stumbles her way into his quiet quarters, wondering to herself if he has already fallen fast asleep for the night. Hiccuping and swaying unsteadily in the deep shadows of the room, the clumsy girl blindly fumbles around the walls as she tries to locate the light switch, realizing that the entire space has become completely pitch black and impossible to navigate.